To all the real ones out there, welcome back to Steelers Talks and the Commanders Report's live coverage of NFL free agency. Day 2 is upon us. We've got some very juicy stuff that has happened here over the last hour in the National Football League. We're going to be breaking down every single move that has happened since we left you guys yesterday at around 6 p.m. Eastern Time here on the show. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders here after both teams made some moves yesterday. Now, just so you guys know, this is a simulcast here on YouTube with two channels, our audience with our Steelers Talk audience, and then also with the Commanders Report. We did the same thing yesterday where we're trying to get live coverage for every single NFL channel that we can here at Chat Sports. And what being live on both channels allows us to do here is we don't have to go in and out of live coverage on different channels. We can just stay live on both channels, and then when breaking news happens, we'll cover that team's news, and then we can just talk about the NFL at large when there's a break in between breaking news. So I appreciate each and every one of our real ones from Steelers Talk and the Commanders Report that are joining us here this afternoon, and we're going to have a good time talking some Steelers and Commanders football today and reacting to all the big news that is happening around the National Football League here on day 2 of NFL free agency. So I just explained that, Ponzi, so we can just move on to the next one there. Ponzi's a little slow today, man. We've had all morning to get ready for this, man. All right, so we've got both audiences in here. I want to see how many real ones are here in each of our chats here. All right, so I'm going to do shout-outs on Steelers, and Mr. Ponzi's going to do shout-outs on Commanders here. So type those PITs if you are here in our Steelers chat, or type those WASs if you are watching us on the Commanders Report. We got JT Prods in here. Robert Locke is with us here today from Steelers. Landon Uselli. We got Michael, we got John, we've got Ben, we've got Colton, got Gaming, we've got Mexamander, we've got John, Fluffy, Michael, Junior Prompa, we got Czar Craig. What's up, Craig? Good to see you, my man. We got Shaq, we've got Oxy, Fluffy, Fernando Martin is here, Kevin Reed, Offsides Edits, we've got Dylan, we've got Fernando Martin, Electric Diversion. My lovely fiance, Cassie Voth, is in the chat as well. Everyone in our Steelers chat, say hi to Cassie for me. And Ponzi, who is joining us from our Commanders live show.
I see Legacy, I see Daniel, I see Abdul, I see Bass, I see John, Zay, Matthew, Seth, Lorenzo. Let's get some more WASs in there. Here, let's see Altrez, Shugs, Altrez, Tim, Wesley, Redbeard, Bass Brick.
All right,
Cassine.
We've got some great people in both parties here, ready to talk some football today. And obviously, we won't be live as long as we were yesterday. We were live for 7 hours on both channels yesterday, reacting to a bunch of breaking news. Obviously, the Steelers doing a bunch of stuff, a trade and a couple signings, and the Commanders also made quite a few moves as well. And I do expect that both these teams could be making moves here in the coming hours. So make sure you guys stick with us here. We'll probably be live today for about 3 to 4 hours, depending on how the news kind of breaks here today. But make sure you guys are always tuned in here, because we're going to be reacting to every single thing that happens live here on the show today. So if you guys want to get a question or a comment or an idea up on screen next to me and Ponzi here, and you want us to talk about that, you guys can super chat any dollar amount. So $2, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100. We don't care as long as you guys donate some money to the channel here. We'll put you up on screen and give you some love and answer any questions that you have on either the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Washington Commanders. We also have Steelers Talk hats that are available for you guys for purchase for $25 Venmo and PayPal donations. You can find me at Jack Dashberry on Venmo or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. Again, $25 Venmo or PayPal donations. By the way, usually these hats are $50, okay, just so you guys know. So these are half-off hats, $25 Venmo and PayPal donations on Venmo, at Jack Dashberry, at Captain Jack Rabbit, if you guys want a Steelers Talk logo hat. And then also we have Steelers Talk logo t-shirts for you to purchase as well. You can find these t-shirts at chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. Ponzi is putting that link down there there in the comments and description of today's show. And you guys have been asking in our Steelers audience for a channel logo t-shirt for a while, and we've already got some really cool stuff in the works for Michael Pittman Jr. and Rico Dowdle and a lot of the players that we have added here during NFL free agency. So if you guys want more merch opportunities and you want to help out the channel today, these t-shirts are just $24.99 on our website right now, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. And then also, time is running out to get your limited edition Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt. So if you already have like a channel logo t-shirt, you want to support the channel in a different way, chatsports.com/pitgreen to get this limited edition t-shirt for the black and gold. Also, for our Washington Commanders audience, we have a Washington Drinking Team t-shirt. By the way, that particular one comes in either green or black. You can go to chatsports.com/DCGreen to pick up your Washington Drinking Team t-shirt today. And by the way, we have $5 off express shipping today only. Today's the last day to get your t-shirt before St. Patrick's Day. If you press express shipping, right now we have a special deal where you guys can get $5 off express shipping. You have to press the express shipping button, though, to get the $5 off. So make sure you guys press that button and get your t-shirts today. Again, that's chatsports.com/pitgreen and chatsports.com/DCgreen. And then if you want to pair your Drinking Team t-shirt with a Beers hat for St. Patrick's Day, you can go chatsports.com/beers to pick up that hat that's up on the Chat Sports website right now. All right, so appreciate your guys' support. And now let's do a little bit of recapping what happened yesterday. We'll start with the Pittsburgh Steelers because the Steelers made some really good moves. I think the Steelers were one of the bigger winners of the day in the National Football League on day one of free agency. Bringing back Asante Samuel Jr., whether he plays the slot or he plays on the outside as a backup corner, I think on that 1 year, $4 million contract, that is a value signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the very least, you're getting very high-quality depth with Asante Samuel Jr. in your building. Cole Holcomb, a 2-year, $5 million deal. So we'll see what the Steelers do at linebacker. It sounds like they're considering a trade for Patrick Queen and sending him elsewhere, which would open up an opportunity for Holcomb to be the number 3 linebacker here. He's a good special teamer. Don't mind that one. But then, of course, you trade a late-round pick swap for Michael Pittman Jr., and you give him a 3-year contract extension. So he's going to be locked up here in Pittsburgh for the next 4 years at about a $20 million per season price tag. That's about right for Michael Pittman Jr., in my opinion. Really complimentary of DK Metcalf's skill set. And then maybe the move of the day for me, guys, Jamel Dean, I would give that one a grade of an A+. You're bringing in somebody that just came off the best year of his NFL career, okay, by the numbers and, really on the film, and you're only getting him for $12.25 million per season over 3 years. For kind of reference there, Alontae Taylor, another cornerback that was towards the top of the cornerback market that went to the Titans yesterday, he got signed for $20 million per season. Jamel Dean, as one of the better CB2 options in the league, a really good man-to-man corner, you're only getting him for less than top 20 cornerback money. Like, that is an incredible deal done by Omar Khan, in my opinion. And then after we got off live yesterday, Rico Dowdle agreed to a 2-year, $12.25 million deal with the Steelers. And after losing Kenneth Gainwell to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I really like that pivot from Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy. Obviously, Dowdle played in Mike McCarthy's offense in Dallas in 2024, had over 1,000 rushing yards, got over 1,000 rushing yards again last year in Carolina. He is a no-nonsense downhill in between the tackles runner, and you're getting him for less than what Kenneth Gainwell was signed for in Tampa Bay. All right, like, that is an unbelievable, great value from Omar Khan yet again. And then they brought back a really good rotational, defensive lineman here in his Otto, as they call him, really flashed last year. He earned his roster spot out of camp. He got some opportunities when some injuries struck, like Daniel Aquale and stuff like that, and he really flashed as a rotational defensive lineman. I like the fact that they're bringing him back on a 1-year deal. So overall, really good day for the Pittsburgh Steelers on day one, but there's still a number of remaining team needs that I would like the Steelers to address. Obviously, they're still looking for a quarterback situation. Whether that's Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like the Steelers are pretty confident Rodgers will be returning. We'll have to see if we get an answer from him sometime soon. But obviously, if Rodgers retires at this point, like, your options are pretty thin. Like Kyler Murray maybe tomorrow, but outside of that, like, your veteran options are definitely not fantastic if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. But left guard, Isaac Seumalo signed with the Arizona Cardinals last night. So the Steelers will officially have a new starting left guard next year. They need a wide receiver 3, even though you added Michael Pittman Jr., you still need that third piece to complete the trio. You might end up getting that in the NFL draft, but they could still sign a wide receiver of some kind. Nose tackle, Keanu Benton can't take on double teams and can't anchor. That tells me that they should get a veteran nose tackle for early downs and to solidify their run defense. Also, they need a punter. Corliss Waitman is a free agent, and there's still some decent punters out there, so keep an eye out for a punter signing at some point. And then maybe safety, depending on how they feel about Jalen Ramsey. Like, if they want to use Ramsey at the big nickel position, they need another starting safety. If they plan on using Ramsey at safety, they might need a starting nickel. If they're not planning on using Asante Samuel Jr. in that regard. But then offensive tackle, maybe it depends on how they feel about Dylan Cook and Broderick Jones heading into next season. Personally, I think I'd be cool just going with Dylan Cook next year, and I think that he showed enough good things where I would want to keep him as the starting left tackle. And hey, if Broderick Jones beats him out in camp, then you give the job to Broderick as a former first-round pick. And then another thing that they could do is inside linebacker, especially if they trade Patrick Queen away, or they cut him, or they cut Malik Harrison. All those are possibilities. If they let go of a linebacker, they could add another linebacker to this group. But then we can take a look at some of the top targets that Steelers fans can keep an eye on here today. Aaron Rodgers, obviously. We're just on Rodgers' watch until he makes a final decision. But also his former Packer teammate, Elton Jenkins, got released by the Green Bay Packers last night, and he is somebody that I think would fit perfectly with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a former Pro Bowl left guard. The Packers moved him to center last year, and he wasn't nearly as good. He has an established relationship with Aaron Rodgers, and he was one of the better left guards in football when he was playing left guard for the Green Bay Packers. So he's somebody that I think I would absolutely love to bring in. Also, the Steelers fans know GM Omar Khan is obsessed with the comp pick formula. Because Jenkins was released, he would not affect the comp pick formula for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That one makes a lot of sense to me. But if they want to go in a different direction, Joel Bitonio's still out there. Kevin Zeitler's still there. Brock Hoffman, who played for McCarthy in Dallas, is available. He can also play center, by the way. But then wide receiver, if you want to get a wide receiver 3 today, I would say they need somebody that can provide a little bit of speed. Darnell Mooney and Calvin Austin III are 2 options that can certainly bring that to the table. A couple guys that have been connected to Mike McCarthy in the past, Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks, both played McCarthy's offense in Dallas, could be options as well. And then Hollywood Brown, who had a down year in Kansas City last year, but he's been known as a vertical separator with some juice. You could potentially bring him in on a lower level contract. And then on defense, the guys that I would keep an eye on today for Steelers fans are Nate Hobbs, who was released by the Packers today. Hobbs actually played his best football of his career in Patrick Graham's defense in Las Vegas in 2023 and 2024 as their starting nickel. And if the Steelers want to bring him in as their nickel here and just move Ramsey to safety full time, I would be okay with that, especially for the right price tag. If you want to get a different big nickel option, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is out there to consider. Also, Kevin Byard, Donovan Wilson, who's played for Mike McCarthy in the past, Nick Cross, some other safety options if they want to play Ramsey at big nickel next year, and then some nose tackle options. Dalvin Tomlinson, keep your eye on him, guys. He has a connection to Patrick Graham going back to their time together with the New York Giants. Deshaun Hand and Sebastian Joseph Day are another couple good run defending interior linemen. And then also A'Shawn Robinson was released earlier today. We didn't have time to put him on the graphic, but A'Shawn Robinson, a veteran nose tackle, got released by Carolina today. Keep your eye on him if the Steelers want to add a run stuffer. Okay. And now, just a second here. Ponzi needs to bring up my top 5 Steelers targets for today. And here they are. For the Steelers, these are the 5 players that I would want to pursue today more than any others. I would go Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Elton Jenkins at left guard, Darnell Mooney at wide receiver. If you can get him on a good price tag here of like less than $8 million on a 1-year deal, I would definitely bring in Darnell Mooney. Dalvin Tomlinson at nose tackle. And then another name to keep an eye on here is Jamal Adams, who played kind of like a big nickel kind of hybrid linebacker role for Patrick Graham in the Raiders defense last year, and he was one of their better defensive players last season. It wasn't a good defense, but Adams was one of their better defensive players. The best season Adams has had in the NFL in a long time, and he should be really cheap to get. So keep your eye on Jamal Adams for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now we can shift our focus here to the Washington Commanders, who maybe had a little bit of an underwhelming day yesterday is what I'd say. They still have a lot of things that they need to address, and they still have a lot of money to spend. So we'll see how Adam Peters and Dan Quinn decide to spend that money over the next several days. But Jake Moody and Treylon Burks signed extensions over the weekend that's included with a bunch of different additions and re-signings that they've made before that, like Nick Allegretti and others. But Laramie Tunsil, that was the big move of the day yesterday, getting him locked up to the largest APY contract for a left tackle in NFL history, $30.1 million per season, with $52.6 million of the $60.2 million total being fully guaranteed at signing. So he's going to be around for the next 3 years at least in Washington. But then their first outside addition this year was Amik Robertson. So a nice signing here. 2 years, $16 million total, $8 million per season for somebody that's a serviceable starter that can play on the inside, can play on the outside, and you can kind of figure out where you want to play Mike Sainristil once we get to training camp and such. And you can just put Robertson wherever Sainristil doesn't play. They also re-signed Marcus Mariota to a 1-year, $7 million contract to remain this team's backup quarterback. I personally question his fit in a under center heavy offense like the Commanders are probably going to run under new offensive coordinator David Blau, but he's a good backup, and on paper it's a decent signing. But the big outside addition for the Commanders yesterday was Odafe Oweh, the edge rusher, 4-year, $100 million deal, $68 million of that being fully guaranteed. And Oweh is the perfect signing for that position, in my opinion, because I do think the Commanders are going to be targeting edge rusher in the draft this year to hopefully be their number 1 edge rusher of the future. But there's not going to be a ton of pressure on that edge rusher to be that number 1 guy right away. You've got Oweh and you've got Dorrance Armstrong, 2 very capable edge rushers in your starting lineup. And then maybe if you draft David Bailey, he could be a rotational guy to start his NFL career, and he can eventually move his way up to hopefully him becoming your number 1 edge rusher of the future. But then they also signed another player on the defensive line, Tim Settle, 3 years, $24 million deal. He joins some of the re-signings that they have had on the interior this year. And along this defensive line, guys like Drake Jackson and Dietrich Wise and others here, and Shai Tuttle. Tim Settle is going to come in here, and he's going to be a starter on early downs, and then he'll be a rotational piece on when they're in their nickel look. So I think that's a slight overpay, $24 million over 3 years for Tim Settle, but he's a good football player. Texans fans love him. I had a lot of Texans fans hit me up yesterday and say, take care of our sweet prince, Tim Settle. So they seem to like him, and on film, he is very violent and very disruptive. So, pretty decent player to add for just a, $7 million? No, $8 million per season price tag. That's pretty decent. So in terms of the team needs that the Commanders need to address today, they still need to address running back. Right now, Bill Krosky-Merritt is the only running back on the team, so they need to get a running back. But they also need to address wide receiver 2 and 3. They also need to address starting center, unless they really plan on going with Nick Allegretti at that spot, which I would not recommend. They also need a starting left guard, unless they feel like Brandon Coleman is good enough to have that spot unchallenged, which I don't think he is. And they might want a tight end. Apparently, Isaiah Likely said that the Commanders weren't interested in him or something like that. I saw a report today saying the Commanders, or Likely said he was interested in the Commanders, but he ends up not signing here. That tells me the Commanders weren't super interested in him, especially for the price tag he went for. But they could also go linebacker. Frankie Lulu's getting older. Bobby Wagner's a free agent. So Jordan McGee is the younger linebacker that probably should be getting a starting spot next year. But if they want to add a third linebacker to this rotation that's not Kane Medrano or Ali Cahoe or any of the the other guys that they've got on the roster, they could go get a linebacker and then safety. Depending on how they feel about Quan Martin and Will Harris, could they potentially go out and get a safety or a big nickel of some kind? It's definitely a possibility. In terms of the players that Commanders fans should be looking out for on the in free agency today, we'll start with the trenches because center and left guard are two spots that I would like to address here in Washington. Elton Jenkins is also a possibility for the Commanders. Joel Bitonio and Kevin Zeitler. Chris Paul, who was with this team last year, could still be a consideration. And Brock Hoffman, has that same connection to McCarthy as he does Dan Quinn, because Quinn was McCarthy's defensive coordinator in Dallas back in the day. But at center, I'd probably go Graham Glasgow, a perfect fit. He was the center there for Ben Johnson in Detroit, and this is going to be a Ben Johnson-style offense in Washington. If you're looking for that hard-nosed type of center, I think Glasgow is a great fit for the Commanders. Keep your eye on him. But some other options are Lloyd Cushenberry and Ethan Pocic that are still available. When it comes to the running back position, I would say definitely keep your eye on Rachaad White. He's probably the best running back that's still available on the market overall, probably the most valuable, and he would be a perfect complement to Bill Krosky-Merritt. Like, Bill is like pretty much just a early down running back at this point. Rachaad, brings that pass catching skill set, that third down running back skill set. That would be a really good fit with Bill Krosky-Merritt. Also, he's a college teammate of Jaden Daniels and Brandon Ayuk, who I expect to sign with the Commanders tomorrow at some point. But some other options there, Joe Mixon and Jeremy McNichols, especially if you can get him back. You can get McNichols back on like a really short-term, low-end contract. He's a good RB3 in my opinion. Then in terms of the wide receivers and tight ends that they could consider today, De'Ami Brown, certainly brings some speed to the table, some deep threat ability, has a good connection with Jaden Daniels. We saw that on this team's playoff run in 2024. Juwan Jennings obviously has that connection to Adam Peters from his San Francisco days, but also apparently the Commanders were in on Romeo Doubs before he went to the New England Patriots today. Juwan Jennings is a very similar type of wide receiver to Romeo Doubs in my opinion. So keep your eye on Juwan Jennings as a potential option, but if they want to add speed, Calvin Austin III is also an option for Washington, and same thing goes for Hollywood Brown. But then at the tight end position, you got Dallas Goedert, still available. One of the best tight ends in this class is still gettable. Zach Ertz could potentially sign another one-year deal here in Washington, and then some other options, David Njoku. And Darren Waller's interesting because he was a pretty darn good pass-catching tight end for the Dolphins last year, kind of what the Commanders are looking for. That would be an interesting signing. Then we get to some defensive targets here. At a bevy of different positions. At linebacker, Dre Greenlaw, keep an eye on him just because Greenlaw was in San Francisco when Adam Peters was. I'm a big fan of Leo Chanel. And by the way, Steelers fans, if Patrick Queen ends up getting traded, watch out for Chanel to the Steelers potentially. And then Landon Roberts is one that might make sense because you've got Jordan McGee, who's kind of an undersized, kind of athletic pass defense type of linebacker. Maybe they want a thumper. Maybe they want somebody out there that can be a legitimate, run defender on early downs, and that is what a Landon Roberts does, as Steelers fans can attest to here. But at safety, Kevin Byard would be a nice signing here, in my opinion. I don't know if the Commanders want to spend that much money on a safety, and I don't know if they want to completely give up on Quan Martin, but Kevin Byard, ball hawk type of safety, good player. Then Harrison Smith, he's technically not retired, and it sounds like the Vikings aren't bringing him back, and he played in this Brian Flores-esque system in Minnesota these last several years, was a big-time leader. He could be a team captain for the Washington Commanders this year on a one-year kind of lower-level contract. But if you want to go younger, Nick Cross is an incredible athlete at the safety position that they could consider. Jalen Hawkins and Nick Scott, maybe some other options as well. And then if you want to bring in another corner to get some decent veteran depth, Jonathan Jones and Jeff Okudah are two guys that I would say keep your eye on for the Washington Commanders. Maybe you can throw in Trayvon Diggs as well. Now, my top 5 targets for the Commanders today, I would say Rachaad White. To get at running back, I think that's a perfect fit for the Washington Commanders. If I'm Adam Peters, I am really trying to go hard to get Rachaad White in this on this football team. Graham Glasgow, similarly, if the Commanders can get out of today with just Rachaad White and Graham Glasgow, I will be pretty happy with that. But also Joel Bitonio, if you could sign him to a decent one-year contract for someone that's still a very good starting left guard, I'd be happy with that. Harrison Smith might be a very nice value signing for the Commanders, and then Landon Roberts as that thumper linebacker that might be a good complement to Frankie Louvu and Mr. Jordan McGee here in Washington. So let us know, guys, who's a player that you hope your team signs here today. Steelers fans, who are you guys interested in? Do you guys want another wide receiver? Do you want a nose tackle? Do you want a safety? Do you want a left guard? Who are you hoping to get? Commanders fans, same question. Let us know who you guys want down there in the comment section. And now, are we getting anything here? So apparently Adam Schefter says, despite speculation, the Jaguars have not been interested in trading Brian Thomas Jr., so it sounds like that's not going to happen. Let's see.
I didn't see anything else. I did see somewhere that Romeo Doubs or the Commanders finished second again.
Yeah, I mean,
which is crazy.
It seems like the Commanders have been in on a lot of these big names: Romeo Doubs, Alec Pierce, Kenneth Walker, Tyler Linderbaum, and they just haven't gotten any of them. Like the one guy that they've really landed is Odafe Owe, and that's a good signing. But like as we just laid out here, the Commanders still have quite a bit that they need to to round out the rest of their roster. They still have a lot of money to spend in free agency in terms of their cap. So it would surprise me if we don't get at least a couple of more moves from the Commanders today. The Steelers also have positions that they need to address as well. I know Jaquan Brisker, who's a Pittsburgh native, posted the eyes emoji today, and a lot of Steelers fans are like, "Oh man, is he a Steeler?" I guess we'll have to see on that. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting for sure. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens.
I mean, in terms of who I want the Commanders to sign, I definitely think of wide receiver. Obviously, like Juwan Jennings, maybe. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk can't sign with the team until Wednesday, which is tomorrow. But I think Juwan Jennings is a good fit. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Darnell Mooney, maybe.
Yeah, Mooney might be a good fit for the Commanders because he brings that vertical speed, but he's also a good route runner. He's dealt with some injuries in the past, but if you're banking on Brandon Ayuk tomorrow, I feel like that'd be a really good trio. Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney. That'd be a really good trio. But it would also be a good trio here in Pittsburgh if you get DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, and Darnell Mooney.
So Darnell Mooney's going to be probably a popular candidate for both teams. I would expect Juwan Jennings maybe for one of these teams. I don't know if so much for the Steelers, but for the Commanders.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, Steelers, Elton Jenkins probably, just get that left guard.
Yeah, I think the Steelers need some speed. They need some juice in the wide receiver room because DK obviously has juice, but he doesn't have a diverse route tree. Okay? And then Michael Pittman Jr. has awesome hands. He's a chain mover. He's pretty decent after the catch, but he's not really somebody that's going to create a ton of separation necessarily against man. So what the Steelers need is somebody as that third piece to be able to come in and be that route runner, that separator versus man coverage. They still need separation in this wide receiver room because as much as I like the Michael Pittman Jr. addition, he doesn't really bring a lot of separation, especially down the field. I still think they need that guy with some juice. And I do think that they're going to sign somebody or draft somebody like that pretty early on in the NFL draft. I think right now, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Omar Cooper Jr., and Casey Concepcion, those four guys are going to be the guys that they really hone in on early.
Yeah,
because all those guys have juice. All those guys can play inside or out. A lot of those guys are good after the catch as well. So I'm really excited to see what the Steelers are going to do at that third receiver spot. But I also think the Steelers are probably going to sign one more veteran receiver at a lower level contract because they don't want to be in a position where they feel like they have to take a receiver round one. They want to be able to have that flexibility if they want, which is why I think maybe bringing back Calvin Austin III makes some sense here, Ponzi.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea for them at all.
He's a good punt returner. He's definitely got speed, and he's played both inside and out in his career with the Steelers. And I don't think anyone would say he's a wide receiver too. He's just not consistent enough to be that. But he does have serious speed that defenses have to account for. And he is a deep threat. He showed it on the final touchdown of the year for him. In the Ravens game on the final drive where he completely cooked Chidobe Awuzie on that crazy stutter and go. He can run some good routes. It's just he's not big enough to be a wide receiver 2 and be consistent enough as that. But as a wide receiver 3 before the draft, wide receiver 4 after you draft your wide receiver of the future early on, that's a good role for him. I do think that. And as a punt return specialist, he's one of the best in the game at that. If the Steelers ended up signing Calvin Austin III to a 1 year, $3 million deal or something like that, I think that would be a good deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And another guy to keep your eye on for that veteran wide receiver role. I said it yesterday, Jalen Tolbert, Mike McCarthy guy. He was kind of that wide receiver 3 and 4 in Dallas for McCarthy. And, I think, he wouldn't be expensive at all, probably a 1 year, $3 million deal as well. I don't know if Calvin Austin's going to be willing to come back to the Steelers. It kind of seemed like he wanted to move on. He got a new agent, and, I don't know if he really wants to come back. I wouldn't be mind for him to come back to Pittsburgh, but it's just going to be a case where I think he probably ends up walking, and they're going to go after, maybe a Jalen Tolbert. Man, I can't really think of anyone else.
Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I don't want Brandon Cooks though. I
feel like Cooks is fine as a wide receiver 4.
Yeah,
veteran.
I mean he wasn't bad at Buffalo last year, but it's just
he had some pretty nice moments last year.
Older wide receivers tend to come to Pittsburgh and die, basically.
Well, I don't disagree. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but as a wide receiver 4, on a 1 year vet minimum deal, we know he's willing to play for that low price tag.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But if you bring in Brandon Cooks, if you bring in Jalen Tolbert, they're not really going to play. They might get a couple snaps a game when everyone's healthy. They would only really play if there's injuries. And Brandon Cooks is a vet. He's not as fast as he once was, but he's still a savvy route runner with decent hands for his size. And if you get him for the vet minimum and he's your wide receiver 4, I wouldn't necessarily mind that. I wouldn't mind that deal. Now, the other thing that's a big talking point among Steelers fans, Ponzi, is the quarterback position right now.
Yeah.
Because, how long are the Steelers going to be comfortable waiting for Aaron Rodgers? Because obviously Omar Khan said just a few weeks ago at the Combine, this isn't going to drag on for as long as it did last year. But it's okay, well, how long are we willing to let it drag on before we're moving on to somebody else? And if we're moving on to somebody else, what does that look like, right? Because Kyler Murray's probably going to sign with somebody tomorrow. It's probably going to be the Vikings. Now, there's still a small chance that, Aaron Rodgers could sign with Minnesota if they don't love the Kyler thing. But apparently, according to a report from, I think it was Jordan Schultz today, the Vikings had serious interest in Geno Smith before he was traded to the Jets today.
Which also, total Jets move, by the way.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But, if Rodgers goes to Minnesota within the next 24 hours, and by the way, the new league year starts in about 24 hours, 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And by the way, we'll be live an hour before then because I expect a flurry of signings right when that new league year starts. So, Aaron Jones becomes available, Javon Hargrave becomes available, Kyler Murray becomes available. All these guys that are being released at the new league year all of a sudden become available, and I think that's when we see a little bit of a jump in some of these moves that are made. Because today's been pretty quiet, Ponzi. It's been pretty quiet, and I think we get another spike in moves once that new league year begins. And Kyler, I'm guessing, will have his decision sometime tomorrow. And once Kyler makes his decision, whatever it is, it's going to be interesting for sure. Rodgers might be waiting until final word from Kyler Murray of what he wants to do before he's making his decision, because Rodgers might be sitting there saying, well, if Kyler picks anywhere else other than Minnesota, I would like to go to Minnesota. That's certainly a possibility, but I mean, anything's a possibility, as we know, with Aaron Rodgers. And I kind of feel like the Steelers might wait until the end of the week, and then they might have some conversations about, pivoting to somebody else, maybe trading for Anthony Richardson. Obviously, Geno Smith is off the table now. He was one of my top, emergency break glass in case of emergency quarterback options. Right now, you're looking at guys like Kirk Cousins, who doesn't have any more arm strength, Andy Dalton, who you'd have to trade for, by the way, Joe Flacco, who could complete the Infinity Gauntlet in the AFC North if he comes here. But, I'm not really interested in any of those guys, honestly, Ponzi. So, it kind of feels like the Steelers are just, on their knees begging that Aaron Rodgers comes back for another year.
I really, the ultimate bad decision, or anticlimactic, would be if Rodgers retires and kind of just screws over the Steelers and just leaves them hanging, basically. I feel like there are decent options, but it's I don't know, man. I know a lot of Steelers fans are going to want Will Howard to start. I disagree with that. I think it's really dumb to start basically a rookie quarterback. He basically, he was out the whole year last year with an injury. Missed all of preseason. We haven't even seen Will Howard play football in the Professional Football League.
Well, so but I would say this. I'd add one caveat to what you just said. I think it would be a bad bet to just go with Will Howard unquestioned. He is your unquestioned starting quarterback next year. No veteran competition is being brought in. Nothing. But if you bring in a Kirk Cousins or a Joe Flacco or an Andy Dalton, and then Will Howard beats them out in camp, that's a slightly different story to me. That's not to say that Will Howard would be good, but obviously the Steelers are very high on him. Every time people talk about how the Steelers feel about Will Howard, they're in love with him. Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan have apparently watched all of his practice tape from last year, and they think that there's something there. Now, we obviously won't know if anything's there until we see him in game, but he does have some starter tools, right? He does have, good size. He's got plus athleticism. It's not dynamic athleticism like Josh Allen. That's where I differ from John Gruden when he calls him the next Josh Allen. But he doesn't have the arm talent that Allen has either. It's a good arm. It's not a bazooka. It's not an incredible arm. It's a very kind of tight, almost, I don't want to call it robotic, but it's not a super fluid throwing motion either. His pocket footwork was a mess at Ohio State. He would bring his feet together a lot, and that would affect the consistency with his accuracy. I mean, last year at the NFL Combine, I believe he had the most balls hit the turf than any other quarterback working out at the Combine. And that's against air. So, you take into account that he played at Ohio State with maybe the best wide receiver room in the history of college football, or at least one of them, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate. All those guys are just insane talents. And he had two great running backs in Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. Perfect protection from that offensive line, and a great defense that has how many elite players coming out in the draft this year, Ponzi? He had the Styles brothers and, McDonald and, Arvell Reese. And,
even last year.
And Caleb Downs. And that team was as stacked as almost any team in college football history. Now, I think Will played really well in the playoffs, and that's to his credit. He played his best college football of his career in the CFB. Apparently he's got a photographic memory. He's spent a year learning from Aaron Rodgers. And I'm guessing he learned a lot about footwork and about mental processing of defense and all this different stuff. And if he can fix the accuracy, Ponzi, and he can develop as a mental processor here, there's a world where Will Howard could be an NFL starting quarterback. But to just completely bank your entire season on that, I think is dumb. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings did that last year with J.J. McCarthy, who was a top 10 pick, and I thought it was a bad decision to do it with McCarthy last year. I thought they should have signed Rodgers last year. And what happened? They had a team that was ready to compete for a title, but the quarterback was bottom 3 in the league, and it held the team back, and they didn't make the playoffs, and they ended up 9-8. And if they needed to take a quarterback this year, they wouldn't have been able to. And I don't want that to happen to Pittsburgh, because I like what they're doing on offense and defense from a roster perspective. I think Mike McCarthy and Patrick Graham upgrade the scheme here. And I think the worst case scenario for the Steelers is we go with Will Howard as our quarterback next year. He's bottom 3 in the league, and he's terrible, but the rest of the team around him is ready to rock. And the quarterback holds us back, and we have 8-9 wins, and it's another mediocre season here in Pittsburgh. That's not what I want to have happen, right? So I think the Steelers definitely need to add at least one more quarterback to this roster, right? They got to add. I don't know if it's a veteran. I don't know if it's a younger guy that would compete with Will Howard, like an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis or a Trey Lance or something like that. But I think that the plan to just go with Will Howard is just not a sound plan. I mean, just ask Commanders fans. I mean, this is what they did with a 5th-round pick in Sam Howell a couple years ago. He was awful. Okay, Jacoby Brissett came in and looked amazing in the same offense. All right, Sam Howell was not a starting level quarterback, but Ron Rivera, in all of his stupidity, thought that Sam Howell was a legitimate franchise quarterback option as a 5th-round pick. And I remember I was the host of the Commanders Report. That was my first season commentating for the Commanders. Everyone was in the comment section. Oh, Sam Howell's amazing. We have to give Sam Howell a chance. We have to give him a chance. And it's like you look at that season, like, no, you didn't. Like he was not a good quarterback prospect coming out. He went in the 5th round for a reason. And you completely banked your season on him, and you ended up with the number 2 overall pick, and Ron Rivera got fired for that decision. Now, on the flip side, they got Jaden Daniels out of that season, right? But, like, there's no guarantee that if Will Howard stinks that they're going to have the number 2 pick, because this roster is a good roster. So, like, it might be more like the Vikings situation where you go 8-9, 9-8, and you're in the middle of the NFL draft, and you might not have a chance to take your guy at quarterback next year.
I mean, there's a common poker saying about this. It's like, don't put all your chips in on a gut shot draw. What that means is like where you have one out, nothing else. So your one out in this case is Will Howard. If Will Howard becomes good and he can carry this team, the odds of that happening are substantially lower than the odds are of getting a veteran quarterback and winning with them.
Yeah.
Like an Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, what frustrates me about the commentary and the dialogue around Rodgers, and I tweeted about this last night, was, isn't anybody curious to see if and how much Rodgers would be playing better next year with an actual wide receiver trio? It feels like everybody acknowledges, oh yeah, the Steelers' wide receiver room was bottom 3 in the league last year. Might have been the worst in the league. Like, everyone acknowledges that. Everyone knew that was a big issue for the Steelers. Yet everyone talks about Aaron Rodgers like there's no chance he could play better next year with a complete overhaul at the wide receiver position this year. It's like, this guy obviously can't move, all right? At least not at the level that he used to, all right? I think he's actually more mobile than Matthew Stafford is at this stage of his career, by the way. But, you know, he still has his arm talent with him. He can still throw it 70 yards in the air. He showed that in the Hail Mary last year. He still has, you know, that incredibly quick release. The ball flies out of his hands still. He still has that incredible ability to mentally process a defense and get the ball where it needs to go. It was a big reason why this offense, with that terrible wide receiver room, was able to get to 15th in points per game. It was by far the best season from a quarterback we've seen here in Pittsburgh in multiple years. And this team maybe had the worst wide receiver room of any receiver of any of those teams, right? So, like, I look at Rodgers, and now you're adding Michael Pittman Jr. You might be adding another veteran in free agency here soon. You're probably going to be drafting multiple rookies in the NFL draft this year that are going to help this wide receiver room. And what do you have to do, Ponzi, with a non-mobile quarterback that is a in-structure playmaker? You have to give him the support in the play caller. I think that you're upgrading that with Mike McCarthy, and you have to give him the support with the weapons that can beat man coverage, because non-mobile quarterbacks are going to see more man coverage just because the defense isn't worried about the quarterback as a rushing threat, so they're going to play more man. Okay, so you have to have guys that can separate versus man to have a successful offense, and we'll see what happens here. But I'm very intrigued to see how much Aaron Rodgers can be better next year with a revamped wide receiver room. This was a top 15 scoring offense last year with a terrible receiver room. If we get like anywhere close to a top 10 receiver group this year and we add a legitimately awesome player in the first round this year, like, this could be a top 10 offense next year. And you've got a really good running back duo now in Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren. You've got 2 really good tight ends in Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth. You've got an offensive line that, it looks really good. You got a lot of good young pieces on there. Hopefully they sign another good one today. Like, this is a pretty decent situation, man, and I just don't understand why people are ready to blow up the Rodgers thing when I think that clearly gives this team the best chance to succeed and compete here in 2026. I understand wanting to turn to the future and try to find somebody that could be the quarterback here for the next 10 years, but what options are out there this year that make you feel confident that they would be that guy? Like Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, Will Levis, Sam Howell, Zach Wilson, Ty Simpson, Drew Aller. Do any of these guys really seem like guys that are ready to prove themselves as franchise-level quarterbacks? No. So my philosophy is, let's go with Rodgers for one more year. He's cheap. The players want him back. Like, you're going to have a much better receiver room. You got a better play caller in there. He's got more playoff experience than the rest of the AFC combined outside of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, are in a position here where they can compete in 2026, and then 2027 should be a very good quarterback class. Like it should be. Like we'll see, but there's a lot of like pretty darn good talents in college football returning to school next year. And I could see 4 to 6 quarterbacks going in round 1 next year. The Steelers could get one of those guys in 2027, even if they have a good season. So, like, I'm of the opinion that this team still has a very real chance to take that next step next year under new head coach Mike McCarthy and quarterback Aaron Rodgers. And it feels like a lot of Steelers fans just want to blow it up. But, like, I'm telling you, man, I think it's the wrong time. I still think this team can compete. I might be drinking the hopium here, but that's what I feel like. All right.
I agree.
So let's talk about what has happened since we got off live yesterday. Let's recap all the moves that have happened since we got off live at around 6 p.m. Eastern time yesterday and kind of just break down what has been going on in the National Football League. Talk about some of the biggest moves that have happened.
Let me get back to this. This has happened. Where did we leave off? Were we here?
Go back one. Yeah, we were there. Okay. So I think Kelsey was the last one that we talked about yesterday. So Penning goes to the Chargers on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. It'll be interesting to see if he plays guard or tackle. He's played both in New Orleans, and he's a Harbaugh guy, dude. Like, he is like a dickhead. He'll draw unnecessary roughness penalties after the whistle and stuff like that. He's not afraid of anybody. But you know, Tevin Jenkins has signed with the Browns now, by the way. So another signing there. But then Greg Dulcich goes to the Miami Dolphins 1 year, $3.25 on that 1 year. Then Noah Fant went to the New Orleans Saints 2 years, $8.75 million there. Decent signing for the Saints, I'd say. Then the Raiders really got going here.
Yeah.
With a lot of money to the linebacker room. I said earlier in the show, during our Steelers segment here, that I'm not a big fan of spending a lot of money at linebacker, Ponzi. Like, my philosophy on linebacker is unless you're getting like a truly game-changing type of talent like Fred Warner or Bobby Wagner in his prime or Luke Kuechly in his prime, like somebody that just completely changes the game and is so smart and so anticipatory, like linebackers just don't impact the game all that much. They just don't. And really where they show up the most is when they miss tackles and when they are bad in coverage. So like my philosophy on linebacker is try to have players that are serviceable at that spot and not pay too much for them. Like that is the goal at linebacker for me. I just don't like paying a lot of money to linebackers because they're just not that impactful on the football game unless you have like one of those game-changing type of talents. And I just don't see linebackers being worth all this kind of money that the Raiders are throwing out to Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker. They're good players, but like I feel like that's just bad resource management by the Raiders.
I think teams are valuing linebackers a lot more just because a lot of people live out of too high again. And like linebackers, you can attack it with the run game. And I think, getting a nice linebacker is, somewhat valuable to these teams, even if it's a decent fit. But like you said, I'm not going to be paying this type of money unless it's like a guy who's going to be changing my defense.
Yeah, and like this goes back to the Steelers discussion, right, with Patrick Queen. Like he's slated to get like an $18+ million cap hit next year. For a guy like Patrick Queen, I think Queen could play better in Patrick Graham's system than he played in Austin's system here the last 2 years. But like, is he going to be worth the $18 million on the cap to the team? I don't. He has to play at a really, really good level for me to pay a linebacker $18 million a season. I'm sorry. Like the Steelers could trade Patrick Queen for a 5th-round pick today and then sign Leo Chanel, who is really good at everything. He's not like a special player in any regard, but like he can do everything that you want a linebacker to do for like a $6 million price tag, and that is a much better value than Patrick Queen for $18 million against your cap this year, in my opinion. So like, if the Steelers can swing something like that, that is something that I think they should consider. But in terms of the Raiders, I think they're throwing a lot of money at positions that are low value, center, linebacker. Like these are not impactful, or at least not super impactful positions. Malcolm Kuntz is back with the Raiders. 1 year, $11 million.
Fine.
So that's fine. Rotational defensive end. He's shown some good things. Then the Cordell Volson, the guard, goes to Tennessee. Isaiah Hodgins is back with the Giants.
Old friend
of the Steelers. Kenny Pickett, former first-round pick, going to the Carolina Panthers on a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. What? Oh my gosh, man! Marcus Mariota went for less than that. I mean, good value for the Commanders if they got Mariota for less than Pickett. I think Mariota's way better.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the Shaheed deal.
So the Shaheed deal, I'm actually surprised the Raiders didn't throw more money. I'm surprised they didn't re-up this $52 million or just outbid, because that's what they did at other positions. But Shaheed's going to be there, and he's going to be the same role that he was last year, where he's the deep threat and he's the special teams guy. It's a lot of money, but if they win another Super Bowl, I don't think anyone will complain,
yeah, that's fair
right?
enough.
Then with the Cardinals, they made 3 signings all in a row. L.J. Collier, the edge rusher. Isaac Seumalo, old friend of the Steelers here, obviously, has been their starter there the last several seasons. Signs a 3-year, $31.5 million contract. Honestly, I would have brought back Seumalo for that.
Yeah.
Just over $10 million a year.
I guess, the age and the injuries are kind of the concerning part about that for the Steelers.
Also, the Steelers can potentially get a comp pick.
Yeah.
So I guess that came into play a little bit there. And then Roy Lopez, the nose tackle, goes to Arizona. 2 years, $11.5 million. They had to replace Dalvin Tomlinson after releasing him earlier this week. Then Reed Blankenship goes to the Texans. That's certainly interesting there. 3 years, $24.75 million over those 3 seasons. Blankenship is interesting because he's coming from that, quarters-based defense with Fangio. Now he's going to a system where last year in Houston, they played cover 1 and cover 3. So, that's a completely different system than Blankenship's used to. So we'll see how he plays in that system. But then Quincy Williams goes to the Cleveland Browns at linebacker, replacing Devin Bush, 2 years. And with incentives, it can be up to $17 million. Kendrick Bourne going, Shanahan, kind of depth receiver here, 2 years, $11.47 million for him, going to Arizona.
Arizona getting all the mid players.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Perfect for Mike LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett. Braxton Jones re-signs with the Chicago Bears as their swing tackle, 1 year, up to $10 million with incentives. Dane Belton, safety, gets a $4 million deal with the Jets. Ardarius Washington, who started for the Ravens last year, gets a 1-year deal with Harbaugh and the Giants. Rico Dowdle to the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday.
Really good deal.
We talked about him, but you're getting a back-to-back 1,000-plus yard rusher here. That's no nonsense, and he can break arm tackles. His missed tackle rate last year is very, very impressive, and you get him for less than what Kenneth Gainwell went for, which he went for 2 years, $14 million yesterday. That's an awesome deal. Obviously, McCarthy knows what he's capable of. Love that signing for the Steelers. Christian Harris went to the Falcons. Still not sure about his deal. Kyle Allen, backup quarterback for the Bills. 2 years, $6.1 million. Steelers fans know about him. Then Andrew Beck gets a 1 year, $1.5 million deal with the Jets. Mitch Wishnowsky, the punter for the Bills, got a 1 year deal with him. Then Joshua Williams, a cornerback here, getting a 2 year deal with Tennessee. Zesi Ademiwu, Otto is back here in Pittsburgh. We talked about him earlier in the show. Cole Strange going from Miami and sticking with Mike McDonald here in Los Angeles. 2 years, $13 million deal.
Interesting offseason so far for the Chargers.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. Tyler Biadasz goes to the Chargers, by the way. So Tyler Biadasz, Trevor Penning, and Cole Strange. 3 guys that I would say are very questionable players going to the Chargers. But Devin Lloyd, a big contract last night. Best linebacker in the class, goes to Carolina, who's been spending quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially in their front seven.
Yeah, they've been spending decently smart, too. Although, I like Devin Lloyd. Jalen Phillips is a little bit confusing to me because,
it's a lot
the amount of money.
Yeah, but they were desperate for edge rusher.
And, I get it, but, $20 million a year?
Yeah. I think that's a fine deal.
Yeah. I guess, I think
that's a fine
the length
deal.
of the contract and, a guy coming with injury concerns, torn ACL, torn Achilles.
Yeah, the injury concerns are real, for sure.
Yeah.
But, they were desperate. This is the last year that regime is going to get before they get fired. I know they made the playoffs last year, but they made the playoffs in the NFC South. Like, they're going to have to probably win the division again this year, at least make the playoffs again, like actually look like Bryce Young is looking like a franchise quarterback. Like, those things need to happen. And in order for this team to be better, the defense has to be better. And it was better this year than it was the year previously, but they need an injection of talent. And that's why I think they
were only like a quarter away from upsetting the Rams. They definitely have the talent to do that.
Yeah, I think that, it's definitely a big year for Canales and crew there in Charlotte. But Matt Gay gets to sign with the Las Vegas Raiders. That's perfect.
I guess not really an old friend for Commanders fans.
Yeah, exactly. But God, he was so bad for the Commanders last year. But that's the perfect kicker for the Raiders report. Sam Williams, 1 year, $3 million deal. Pretty good deal for your Cowboys there, Ponzi.
They're going to turn him to an outside linebacker, though, when the 3-4. So he's going to drop.
Well, yeah, but he's an edge.
But he wasn't really good at dropping.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I guess we'll see what they do. But,
yeah.
Alohi Gilman, safety, off the board, somebody that I kind of wondered about the Steelers for him and the Commanders maybe, but ends up going to the Chiefs. Good deal for him. Tyquan Thornton back to the Chiefs as well. 2 years, $11 million for him. Elijah Vera-Tucker getting off the board here. Really good signing for the Patriots, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, they've been adamant that they believe Will Campbell is a left tackle. Elijah Vera-Tucker, he's a very solid, left guard when he's healthy. But that's the big thing, is can he stay healthy? And getting half of that guaranteed is a good deal for him. Benjamin St. Juste, or Benjamin St. Toast, as our Commanders audience know, we like to call him here. Again. 2 years, $10 million. It's fine, whatever. Like, backup level contract there. If he's a starter for the Green Bay Packers, they're going to find out very quickly how bad that guy is. He's not very good at all. Greg Newsome, somebody that was pretty good with the Browns, but then he was not very good with the Jaguars last year. He ends up going to Harbaugh and the New York Giants here. 1 year, up to $10 million in incentives. Pretty decent value there for New York, I would say. Taking a flyer on somebody that's still pretty young, somebody that's played good football recently. I like that deal for the Giants. Then LeBrian Ray, a defensive tackle, going to Charlotte. Andrew, the pro, I can't even say this guy's name, DePaula. I think it's DePaula. If I'm not mistaken, he's an all-pro level long snapper apparently, so he's back with the Vikings. Dawson Knox is back with the Bills, 3-year deal. And then today, Khalif Raymond really kicked things off. 1 year, $5.1 million deal for him. So, if Khalif Raymond's getting 5.1, what is Calvin Austin III getting? What is Darnell Mooney getting?
Yeah.
Right? So we'll see what happens there. But Raymond, obviously, coming over from Detroit, where Ben Johnson used to work, to Chicago, where he currently works. That one makes sense. Isaiah Pacheco, a kneecap biter, if I've ever seen one, Ponzi. That is a fantastic fit for the Detroit Lions and just what they need alongside Jahmyr Gibbs. Zane Gonzalez gets a 1 year deal with Miami. We Commanders fans know about him quite a bit. Not fantastic. Then Micah McFadden, linebacker, back with the New York Giants. Kaimi Fairbairn, the kicker for the Houston Texans, signed a 2 year, $13 million extension. Dean Leonard, the cornerback here, 1 year, $2 million deal for him. Braden Smith will be their starting right tackle there in Houston next year, a 2 year, $20 million deal. I like that deal. I like that deal a lot for Houston. Braden's getting older, but he's still a very good starting right tackle. And, they've got Ariante Ursary. Let's see here.
See anything else?
You don't see anything else? Oh, okay. But yeah, Ariante Ursary looked pretty good at left tackle last year, and Trent Brown is a good swing tackle that they have on the roster. So I like what the Texans have done at tackle. Also, Jake Hummel, a linebacker, gets a 2 year deal. And then we had some quarterback movement today as Geno Smith is back with the New York Jets. Pretty much the same exact deal the Steelers got for Michael Pittman Jr. here, a late round pick swap. And Geno goes back to the team that drafted him way back in the day. Your thoughts on this, Ponzi? For me, Geno is somebody that, obviously did not play well last year, but we all knew going into the year Geno's not an elevator. He's at best a pretty good executor, and I think his ability to execute went down last year. I think his arm talent, or at least his arm strength, took a little bit of a dip last year. The accuracy got away from him a lot last year in Las Vegas, but that situation was a terrible situation.
I don't know, man.
No offensive line, led to a lot of pressures, no run game. Brock Bowers was hurt for much of the year. Jacoby Myers got traded. His best receiving weapon throughout most of the year was Trey Tucker. That was a terrible situation. Chip Kelly didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And
calling plays that weren't even in their playbook.
And the defense just had no talent on it, right? So obviously they weren't fantastic either, and he was playing with a deficit for most of the time, had to try and squeeze the ball into tight windows when the defense knew he had to throw the ball. Where Geno Smith is best throughout his career is places where, they've got a decent defense and they've got some weapons for him to throw to. And, he's usually he's used to bad pass protection. He had that for years in Seattle, but I don't see that Jets situation being a ton better. Sure, they've got Garrett Wilson, and they've got some pieces to that offensive line that I like, Membu and Fashanu, and some of those pieces are nice for sure, but I hate Aaron Glenn sucks as a head coach. You're bringing in Frank fucking Reich as your offensive coordinator, and you've got an aging Geno Smith. I just don't see that working out, man. For me, that team makes a lot of sense for Ty Simpson in the middle of the first round.
Yeah, and I definitely don't disagree with that. I think, the whole thing with the Jets situation is that, they have pieces. I think a lot better pieces than the Raiders. But, I don't know if, just that situation's just terrible in its own right. I think, Chip Kelly and Frank Reich, I guess, are comparable as play callers.
Yeah.
If not, they're both really bad.
I would both put them in the bottom tier.
And, you talk about, that defense is definitely getting better with these signings. But, I don't know how much better they're going to be able to get. I mean, they had zero. They only had zero, right? They didn't get any interceptions?
Yep.
That's crazy. And, coming from a defensive-minded guy like Aaron Glenn, I just think, do I see Geno bouncing back? No. Do I think he's better than Justin Fields? Yes. So, their quarterback situation gets better, but, not by a lot.
That's definitely not by a lot. Now, I thought Geno was actually a possibility for the Steelers if they didn't get Rodgers and, Kyler went to Minnesota. Just because of his connection with DK, he still has enough arm strength and size to play in the AFC North. And he's a decent processor. He could hold down the fort for a year to get us to 2027 and to compete with Will Howard in camp. So for the vet minimum, I would have taken Geno Smith if Rodgers would have retired. But if I'm Geno, I'm not super happy that I'm ending up there in New York. I'll tell you that right now. Especially because I think the chances of the Jets taking Ty Simpson just went up a lot, because Geno is not going to be a long-term solution there. Aaron Glenn needs to find some sort of solution at that position if he wants to keep his job for the foreseeable future. I don't think it's a good situation for Ty Simpson. I'll say that right now. You're going to a situation where your head coach and your offensive coordinator are probably going to get fired after next year. You're going to have a new head coach heading into your second year, probably your first year as a full-time starter. I just don't think that the Jets are going to be able to sell Geno Smith as their starting quarterback next year without some sort of long-term quarterback possibility sitting behind him.
Definitely agree.
So I think Ty Simpson in the middle of the first round makes a lot of sense for the New York Jets. Obviously, I highly doubt they take him at 2, but what's their other pick in round 1?
I believe it's 15?
Somewhere in there, 16 maybe. But wherever it's at, that's probably, I think that's probably a prime spot for Ty Simpson. But Romeo Doubs signs a 4-year, $68 million contract with the New England Patriots. And apparently that has been confirmed. So 68 divided by 4, that is $17 million per season.
Up to 80.
I'll say this, all right, because I got commentary on this for both teams. For our Steelers audience, I'll say this. Romeo Doubs at $17 million per season versus Michael Pittman at $20. I think you can make a decent argument. Romeo Doubs is the better value there. Doubs is the better route runner. Now, Pittman, I think, has better hands than Doubs does. I think that he's a better run blocker than Doubs is. But also another thing that Doubs had in his favor is he's played with Aaron Rodgers. So he's got that established chemistry with them. So, for that $17 million price tag, if you're asking me which one I would have rather signed, I probably would have rather done the Dobbs thing. Like if $17 million was enough to get that deal done with Dobbs, I think I probably would have done that over Pittman. But it's not to say that I don't like the Pittman deal. Like I think Pittman's a good wide receiver too. I also think Romeo Dobbs is a good wide receiver too. Now, when it comes to the Commanders, apparently the Commanders, this is once again an instance where Adam Peters has been outbid. Apparently he was in on Alec Pierce. Apparently they were in on Tyler Linderbaum. Apparently they were in on a lot of these guys that went on day one and went elsewhere, and now they lose out again on a wide receiver in Romeo Dobbs. So I don't know what it is about Adam Peters, man, but he's not very good at this. He's not getting these deals done.
Apparently the source from Commanders camp was like they offered a similar deal, and he just chose to go to the Patriots, which is like...
I don't blame him if that's the case.
And same with Alec Pierce, though, that they offered higher than the Colts offered.
Oh, yeah, they offered higher. It's just no one wants to play with the Commanders, I guess.
I guess they know Brandon Ayuk's going over there.
Yeah, I would say, I wouldn't fret too much, Commanders fans. Like, Brandon Ayuk is probably going to sign tomorrow. It's probably going to be a team-friendly deal, which is why they're willing to spend as much money as they're willing to spend on these guys. But, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Darnell Mooney signing here.
Yeah.
Like, I think Mooney probably is more likely to the Commanders than the Steelers. I would love Mooney to the Steelers, but... I think any wide receiver that signs on to be that wide receiver 3 here in Pittsburgh for now probably understands that they're going to use at least one of their 12 draft picks this year on a wide receiver that is probably going to be expected to be the wide receiver 3. So in Washington's situation, they only have 6 total draft picks and only 2 in the first 3 rounds, the first 4 rounds. They only have 2 picks in the first 4 rounds. So there's not a whole lot of room there to take a receiver early and challenge his job as the wide receiver 3. So
yeah,
I think Darnell Mooney to the Commanders actually makes a lot of sense, but we'll just have to see. Isaiah Simmons signed a deal with the Carolina Panthers. Malcolm Rodrigo, as you might remember him from Hard Knocks a few years ago, re-upped with the Detroit Lions. Tevin Jenkins just signed with the Cleveland Browns. Nashawn Wright, who had a breakout season in Chicago last year, signs with the Jets. I actually kind of like that signing for the Jets. The Jets have been spending a lot of money. They've been making a lot of moves.
Because if you look at the older signings, we can kind of get a team going on here real quick, because they have I think 10 signings.
Yeah, they've got a lot. And then PJ Locke goes from Denver to the Dallas Cowboys. So they got Thompson yesterday, and now they're getting Locke. So 2 safeties. Revamped safety room there for Dallas. Pretty much takes them out of contention for Caleb Downs, I'd say.
I think, any of those safeties, Dylan Thieneman, forgetting one, Emil McNoy-Warren. I really like the safety class this year.
So let's take a look at all the moves that the Jets have made here. Tavondre Sweat, trading Jermaine Johnson for him. So he's your new nose tackle. You trade 7th-round pick to Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's a pretty good value there, bringing in a grown-up, somebody that if Steelers fans know, very, very cerebral, smart, anticipatory player. I think he's lost a little bit of a step from his prime, which is why he's not an all-pro caliber safety anymore, but he's still a good player. He showed that in Miami last year. They've also brought in Joseph Asai to be an edge rusher for him, and also Kingsley Enagbare. Demario Davis being brought in from New Orleans. Aaron Glenn worked with Davis when he was working in New Orleans all those years back, so that one makes sense. David Onyemata also getting signed on the interior here. Dane Belton and Andrew Beck both signing here with the Jets as well. And then you add Geno Smith and Nashawn Wright to this mix here, and I don't think they're
10 signings.
Listen, man,
trades.
I know that they're making some decent moves here. That's all fine and good, but I don't believe in the coaching staff there in New York, and I don't believe in the quarterback. So, all these other moves that I kind of like, the Nashawn Wright signing, especially at $5.5 million for just one season, that's a good value for the New York Jets. Wright was a good player for the Bears last season, right? So, for me, I don't think there's a team in this league that is more I'm more sure is going to fire their head coach after next season, or maybe even during the season, than next year with Aaron Glenn and the Jets. There was talk about the Jets firing him this past year, middle of the year, in the middle of his first season as the head coach. There's talk about him getting fired because he had the longest losing streak to start his tenure as the head coach of the New York Jets. And this is the Jets we're talking about here, folks. And he was the worst of all time in terms of the start. I think he lost, his first 7-something games?
Something like that. It was bad.
It was really bad to start this past year. I don't think they lose quite as many games as they did this past year, but I don't think it's going to be nearly good enough to save Aaron Glenn's job. I think Geno Smith's career as a starting quarterback ends and dies there in New York this year, unfortunately, for him. And, I think Ty Simpson makes a lot of sense at wherever they're picking in the first round. Oh, let's go. $5 from Sam Brown. We're going to catch up on some Super Chats here. And, of course, if we get any breaking news for either the Steelers or Commanders, we will be diving into that.
Is this our Sam Brown?
I think this is. Sammy here says, why did Dobbs choose May over Jaden Daniels? I remember some analysts had Jaden Daniels as a top 6 QB going into the season. Does he not watch film? Make it make sense. Actually, I had JD as a top 5 quarterback last year, Sam, going into the year, and the infrastructure completely crumbled around him, and he got hurt, and Terry McLaurin got hurt, and Terry didn't have any training camp last year, and all that different stuff. So I'm hoping that Jaden can stay healthy next year. I'm hoping that Terry can stay healthy next year. I'm hoping that they can put more help around him. I'm hoping David Blau is a better offensive coordinator than Cliff was, and he chose May and the Patriots because that was a better team last year, and that's a better situation right now than the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. But that's okay, Sam. That's okay. We're going to figure it out this year. Brandon Ayuk coming to Washington, and maybe we get Juwan Jennings or maybe we get Darnell Mooney here in Washington as well, and Jaden Daniels can get back in that top 6 conversation. Hey, buddy? $2 from Billy. It says, you guys are awesome. Keep up the good work. Appreciate you, Billy. Is this one from our Commanders or this one's from Commanders, so appreciate you, Billy. All right, cool. O-Dubs with a 2. From our Steelers chat says draft Thieneman or McNeil Warren in the first round. Thieneman I would probably be down for. If the plan is for Ramsey to play big nickel, then Thieneman, I love Thieneman. And I also think McNeil Warren's a really good football player. 21 might be a little bit rich for McNeil Warren for me. But he's a damn good football player, man. If the Steelers ended up taking him, I'm not going to cry about it. But, it's going to be interesting to see what the Steelers have in store for Jalen Ramsey, because depending on what they plan to do with him is going to depend whether they're going to bring in a nickel corner, a safety, or nobody, right? Maybe they feel like Brandon Echols is their starting slot next year. Maybe they feel like Asante Samuel Jr. is their starting slot next year. I don't know the answer to those questions right now. So I guess we'll have to see what the Steelers have in store for Jalen Ramsey and what they have in store for this Steelers defense here in 2026. All right, so if you guys want to get Chat Sports t-shirts here, Steelers Talk channel logo t-shirts are available, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. You guys have been asking for this t-shirt for a while, and you guys have been buying them up like hotcakes. So if you guys want to, rep the channel, support the show, wear this during, your yearly trip to Latrobe and Steelers training camp, or, during Steelers game days, or just lounging around the house, it's perfect for that. It's just $24.99 on our website right now, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. Also, today is the last day, really, to, order your Steel City Drinking Team t-shirts and use express shipping to get your shirt in time for St. Patrick's Day. Again, that's chatsports.com/pitgreen to get that t-shirt. We also have Washington Drinking Team t-shirts for our Commanders fan base out there. Chatsports.com/DCgreen to get your Washington Drinking Team t-shirts today. And again, guys, the more of these t-shirts that we sell, the more merch opportunities we're going to get for your respective channel. Okay, so Commanders fans, if you want a Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry themed t-shirt, make sure you guys buy up these Drinking Team t-shirts. If the Steelers fans want a Michael Pittman Jr. t-shirt, if they want a Rico Dowdle t-shirt, if they want any other, Big Mike McCarthy, t-shirt, make sure you buy these up, man. Again, that's chatsports.com/pitgreen, chatsports.com/DCgreen to get your t-shirts today. And also, it's $5 off express shipping right now when you go to our website. You have to click the express button to get the $5 off. But we greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. And again, you guys can get those t-shirts at chatsports.com/pickgreen or chatsports.com/dcgreen. If you want to pair that t-shirt with a Beers hat, we have those available on our website as well, chatsports.com/beers, if you're interested in one of those. All right. All right, back to Super Chats. $5 from Ghost says, would you have preferred if the Steelers gave up more for Brian Thomas Jr., or are you happy with the Pittman move? Right now, I'm happy with the Pittman move because it sounds like the Steelers would have had to give up their first-round pick to get Brian Thomas Jr. It's not something I'm interested in, man. Like if you like Pittman and then like a first-round pick at wide receiver, I think is better than just getting Brian Thomas Jr., for example. So I really like this wide receiver class. There's a lot of dynamic talents in this class, and Pittman is a good wide receiver too for now. And, I'm hoping that this draft pick that they end up getting this year can eventually be this team's number 2, if not this team's future number 1, and we can kind of go from there. But, I think the Pittman move, you pretty much give up nothing to get him. You do have to give him the extension, but if he was cut and you had to sign him in free agency, you would have had to give him a similar deal anyway. I think he's very complimentary with DK Metcalf. He's more of an underneath threat, chain mover, really, really good hands, great red zone threat. Pretty decent yak threat as well. And you pair that up with DK Metcalf, who's like that, speed demon at his size, vertical threat, but he's also a really good yak threat. Underneath on slants and stuff like that and screens. I really like this combination. The only thing the Steelers are missing now is that legitimate, 3-level dynamic and diverse route runner. That's what they need now. That's what they have to get in this draft class. Somebody that can run the complete route tree, can separate versus man consistently. That's the one thing that this Steelers offense is still kind of missing, and that's what they need to go get in the NFL draft, or maybe even in NFL free agency. There's still some pretty good route runners out there available. $5 from Eli M says, do you think that Brisker will sign with the Commanders, or not the Commanders, Steelers? And what about Kirk Cousins being a backup? If the Steelers sign Kirk Cousins, he's going to be like the vet bridge option that competes with Will Howard and maybe another younger quarterback. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the Kirk Cousins idea, guys, just because I don't think his body is built to play in the AFC North. In this division, you have to play outside, in the wind, in the conditions, in the rain, in the snow, and you got to have a strong arm, period. You have to be able to grip that football when it's wet. You have to be able to throw that ball through the wind without it, completely changing course. And, I don't know if you guys watched Kirk Cousins play these last 2 years, but the arm strength is completely gone. At the end of the season, when that wind is howling and when it's cold outside and all that different stuff, I just don't see Kirk Cousins delivering the goods. When you're going to be expecting this team to hopefully try and compete at the highest of levels at the end of the year. So, I think if you bring in Kirk Cousins, Will Howard would beat him out. I legitimately think that. There's a pretty good chance that Will Howard would beat Kirk Cousins out in a quarterback battle. And if he can't beat Kirk Cousins out in a quarterback battle in camp, we got serious problems with Will Howard. So, I'm not sure. I just don't love the idea of Kirk Cousins here in Pittsburgh. I would honestly rather do Joe Flacco than Kirk Cousins. I would rather do Andy Dalton than Kirk Cousins, just because those guys have stronger arms than Cousins does at this point. But honestly, I don't love any of those options, if I'm being completely honest with you. When it comes to Brisker, if the Steelers want to play a lot of one high safety stuff next year, I don't know if Brisker's the guy I would go get, because Deshaun Elliott isn't like a true free safety. And neither is Brisker. Brisker fits best, in my opinion, in a very heavy two-high safety system. He's not like a true box safety, and he's not like a true free safety. He's got to play in that two-high safety kind of quarters alignment. He's a good run defender from that alignment, from depth. He's got some good explosiveness and stuff like that. Does have a little bit of a tackling issue, though. And he's not the best in coverage. So I know because he's a Pittsburgh native, Steelers fans want him back, here in Pittsburgh, all that different stuff. But, honestly, I think there's better safeties out there than Jaquan Brisker, and I definitely don't want to give him a big contract if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. $2 from Mexamander says, how would you feel if the Steelers signed Daniel Jones? Well, it sounds like he's getting a deal done with the Colts right now. So, first of all, I wouldn't be supportive of the team signing Daniel Jones because he's so expensive. the transition tag is like $37 million, so you'd have to sign Daniel Jones to an offer sheet that's more than that per season. Like, you'd have to offer him $40 million a year for somebody that wasn't a very good quarterback outside of the Colts organization before this last year, and he's coming off an Achilles tear. And it has to be for multiple years. And there's got to be a lot of guaranteed money on there. Like, that's just a bad bet if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Daniel Jones is a big NO for me. $2 or F. Ponzi in the chat for not having the next super chat ready. But Jason, coming in here from our Steelers chat, says, Aaron Rodgers, please. Yes, I mean, I think he's probably just waiting to see how the quarterback market with Kyler and the Vikings specifically plays out, because it's possible that he views Minnesota as a better spot for him. And he might want to see if that's a possibility for him before he decides to come back to Pittsburgh. And I'm sure a lot of Steelers fans, a lot of proud Steelers fans would be like, oh, he's Pittsburgh's not his first option? Fuck him. Let's move on to somebody else. But, like, I'm telling you, man, Rodgers gives this team the best chance to win next season, even over Kyler Murray. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers' ceiling is higher than Kyler Murray's is. Now, you might be saying, but Jack, the athletic ability with Kyler and the out-of-structure playmaking. But it's like, that only takes you so far in the National Football League. You know what I mean? Like, when was the last time we saw somebody of Kyler's skill set win a Super Bowl? Like, somebody that's undersized, somebody that's very reliant on out-of-structure playmaking, doesn't really do anything from the pocket at a high clip, has to throw a lot of screens. Like, maybe Russell Wilson with the Seattle Seahawks? Like, don't say Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes is awesome from within structure. Like, I just don't remember a quarterback winning a Super Bowl recently that was, like, not good in structure, but, like, his entire playmaking skill set is, like, scrambling and running with the football and one read stuff. I mean, Jalen Hurts, you could make an argument, but, like, you have to have, like, it's usually not very sustainable. And especially because Kyler's about to turn 30. Like, he's not there yet, but he's getting there. And he's a guy that relies as much as he does on athleticism. Like, I really question the longevity and the shelf life of Kyler Murray. Whereas a guy like Aaron Rodgers, obviously he doesn't have much of a shelf life either, but he's one of the best in-structure playmakers in the game. One of the best mental processors in the game. Still has really good arm talent. And in this offense with Mike McCarthy, that gives a lot of the control at the line of scrimmage to the quarterback, setting protections, audibling, getting the team into the right play. This offense is perfectly built for, somebody with the high mental horsepower that Aaron Rodgers has. And if you give him a legitimate set and a trio of weapons, and you use Pat Freiermuth more than Arthur Smith did, and Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren provide him a real run game, and the defense under Patrick Graham takes another step, like, it's very realistic, in my opinion, that the ceiling with Aaron Rodgers is higher than it would be with Kyler Murray. Like, we've seen recently, Tom Brady as a non-mobile starting quarterback win a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've seen Matthew Stafford as a non-mobile pocket passer win a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. Like, we've seen with these non-mobile pocket passers, if you give them a good offensive play caller that knows what he's doing and a good set of receiving weapons, that quarterback can have success, especially if they are great at mental processing, protect the football, limit sacks, get the ball out of their hands quickly. All those things describe Aaron Rodgers. So, like, especially for the $10 to $15 million price tag, I understand why Mike McCarthy, Omar Khan, and the Steelers are trying to get Aaron Rodgers back here and why everybody in the locker room apparently wants him back. It just makes sense to me. $2 from Detrell Wright. Coming in from our Commanders chats, is starting to think Adam Peters is a bad negotiator. Yeah, I mean, it might be part of it, but apparently, like, he offered more for Alec Pierce than the Colts did, and he still went back to the Colts. Like, I think people saw the situation in Washington last year and were like, I don't know if I want to go there. Even though they got Jaden Daniels. I think it's part of, the recency bias stuff of, oh, do I choose to go to a better football team or do I choose to go to a team that just went 5-12? I think that's part of it too. But yeah, I would say Adam Peters, man, especially these last 2 years in free agency, super, super disappointing. $5 from Michael says, sadly, Ayuk is going to fizzle out. like Michael Thomas. This one's actually coming from our Steelers chat. Listen, man, it could be a situation where he comes back from that knee injury and he's just not the same. But, like, it's also possible that he comes back from it after a full year off and now he's back to fully healthy. I think it's possible that Ayuk, could be pretty good as a wide receiver too, next to Terry McLaurin in Washington next year. So we'll see what happens. Ayuk is obviously getting older and he's coming off that major injury and all that stuff, but he's worked out with Jaden Daniels in every offseason he's had since they played together in college, so they obviously have chemistry together. And, he was a dynamic route runner just a couple years ago before the injury. So, I can see why the Commanders are willing to take the risk, especially because I think the Commanders are going to get him for a steal tomorrow. Like, I think they're going to get him for somewhere below $15 million on a one-year deal. Like, that's a value for somebody that was a former All-Pro in this league. $10 from Andrew Arnold. Thank you, Andrew, for the 10. Says, what are the odds that the Steelers trade Caleb Johnson to the Commanders with the need they have in the running back room, seeing we just got Rico Dowdle, or is he more of a draft day trade asset? Well, I'll say this. I don't think the Commanders make a lot of sense to me as a trade partner because they have Bill Krosky-Merritt, whose main strength or whose main weaknesses are pass protection and pass catching. The same exact profile as Caleb Johnson, right? I think, honestly, Bill Krosky-Merritt and Caleb Johnson have a lot in common as players, only Caleb's bigger. Both of them are explosive. Both of them, I think have the potential to be a part of a starting rotation in this league. And, they're both kind of early down type of dudes that need to work on their later down skill sets. So I don't think that, combining two of those guys in the same running back room makes a whole lot of sense for me. But listen, I don't think Caleb Johnson's like a completely worthless asset on the trade market. Like, this isn't a good running back draft class. Caleb still has 3 years left on his rookie deal. There's definitely teams that are out there that liked Caleb Johnson going into the draft last year that still need running back help. Like, I would not be surprised if the Steelers could get like maybe as much as a 5th round pick for Caleb Johnson, but probably more like a 6th round pick for him. Could see that being a possibility, but we'll just have to see what happens. Also, the Steelers might just keep Caleb Johnson as a number 3 running back. That's a very, very real possibility as well. $5 from Greg Milton. Before I go to this question, though, if the Steelers trade Caleb Johnson, especially if it's quickly, like if it's this week, watch out for Aaron Jones potentially to the Steelers as an RB3 option. Greg Milton with a 5 says, think Commanders would go Love now with Oweh signing. It does seem like he would likely be there at 7 or use as a trade back leverage for more picks. Listen, man, Love is probably the most interesting player to me in the first round in the NFL draft because it is such a bad running back class. And Jeremiah is one of the better running back prospects we've seen in a while. So that's going to drive him up the draft board just from that fact alone. And there's a lot of teams that could use a Jeremiah Love, a star-level running back. But there's multiple teams that are drafting before the Commanders that could take him too. Like, apparently the Titans really like him, for example. But we'll just have to see. Like, if the Titans don't take him at 4, then he probably gets the Commanders at 7. I agree with you, Greg. It's just I'm personally not a fan of drafting running back in the top 10 because there's certain positions that have a longer shelf life than running back. There's certain positions that are on the field more often than running back. Like, even like the top running backs in the league aren't on the field for more than 75% of the snaps. Like, there's some guys that'll get over 50 and get into the 60s and stuff like that. But, running backs are a rotational position even at the highest levels. So you add that to the fact that it's a very volatile position. You add that to the fact that you can find good running backs in free agency and the draft pretty much every single year. Like, hopefully this is the last time the Commanders are picking in the top 10 for a long time because you've got a budding superstar in Jaden Daniels at quarterback and you're hoping that you're competing for championships for the foreseeable future. So if I'm the Commanders, my mindset is who's the player that we can take in this draft that we have no shot at getting anything close to in the years to come. And I feel like running back talent, it's not a dime a dozen necessarily, but you can find it, every year. Not at the level of Jeremiah Love necessarily, but you can find it. But what are some tough positions to find, right? Edge rusher talent, like top-end edge rusher talent. Top-end wide receiver talent. I mean, wide receiver is kind of a dime a dozen as well, but like top-end safety talent, top-end cornerback talent, top-end big nickel talent like a Sonny Styles, for example. So for me, if somebody wants to trade up to 7 for Jeremiah Love, I'm doing that. Like, I want more picks. Like, if I'm the Commanders, I want to get younger and I want to get faster. And I only have 2 picks in the top 100. So if someone wants to come up at 7 and take Jeremiah Love, I'm open for business if I'm Adam Peters. And I'm hoping to get an extra pick or 2 on day 2 of the NFL draft in that trade down scenario. So that's where I'm at. $2 from Michael says, Dowdle seems like an improvement versus Kenneth Gainwell. Thoughts? Different types of guys. And Gainwell was really good for the Steelers last year. But here's what I'll say. I like the division of labor between Dowdle and Warren versus what it was last year with Warren and Gainwell. Because there's so much in common between Gainwell and Warren. Like, I think last year, the vision was that Caleb Johnson was eventually going to take over, the number 2 running back spot. And I don't think the Steelers expected Kenneth Gainwell to play as well as he did. And when he was playing as well as he was, they just didn't have anywhere to put Caleb Johnson. And I don't think they were very happy with the product that they got with Caleb Johnson with their 3rd-round pick based on what they saw in practice. So, I look at the situation. I think Dowdle, very good in between the tackles runner. He can catch passes out of the backfield too and pass protect. Like, he can do that stuff, not at the same level as Warren. But then you get Warren, who now becomes one of, if not the best 3rd-down running back in the game. Like, I believe Jaylen Warren is a number 1 running back level player. Like, he's got great contact balance. He's got good long speed. He's got good vision. He's got an awesome spin move. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He's a good run or a good pass protector. Like, Jaylen Warren, to me, is a very complete package as a running back. And now he becomes one of the better 3rd-down guys in the league. And I do expect this Pittsburgh Steelers combination to be a 50-50 split. Whereas last year you had 2 guys that were, neither of them was really a bruiser. Neither of them was really a between-the-tackles guy. And they were both kind of, pass-catching, type of shiftier backs. And, listen, in my opinion, Jaylen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, that was the best thing about the Pittsburgh Steelers offense last year, was those 2 players. But now that you have Dowdle, you have a different flavor in there. You've got somebody that can, bruise and get in between the tackles and, get those quality yards on early downs, when things are kind of tight at the line of scrimmage. And you still have that guy in Jaylen Warren that can catch those passes and take those screens and catch those checkdowns from Rodgers and all those different things. So I really like the division of labor here in Pittsburgh this year. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Kenneth Gainwell didn't have a hell of a season last year either. Like, they're both really good players, but I just love the fact that the Steelers got Dowdle, somebody that got 1,000 yards last year in Carolina for less than what Kenneth Gainwell went for, and he's going to be a number 2 running back in Tampa. So I think it was great value for the Pittsburgh Steelers. $5 here from Jonathan Holscher. Says, I'm an OSU fan and watched Will Howard in college. He had no real problems. He also switched gears in the playoffs. People are being dishonest. He had no real problems. What does that mean? Like, he's a perfect prospect? Listen, man, I'm willing to admit that Will Howard has some starter upside with the tools that he has, but to say he was like a perfect prospect or didn't have anything that was an issue with him, like, I think that's the OSU fan talking, is what I'll say. He was very much a one read to check down or one read to run quarterback at OSU because he could. The wide receiver talent was unbelievable and was usually open on his first read. He had an unbelievable running game to stand behind, a really good O-line that protected him extremely well. Great defense, obviously. And listen, man, like he plays best football in the CFB when it mattered most. And like they won the national championship, and this year Julian Sayin and the Buckeyes couldn't do what he did. So kudos to Will Howard. But you know who else is a national champion that played behind a really good, supporting cast? JJ McCarthy. And JJ is just, people say he's a winner, whatever that means, but he doesn't really bring a whole lot to the table as an NFL starting quarterback, in my opinion. And Will Howard, I think, does have some steps that he has to take, because I think his footwork was not great at Ohio State. He would play with his base, a very narrow base, which would affect his accuracy to all three levels of the field, in my opinion. He also, the mental processing, like he has to go from somebody that was a one-read guy at Ohio State to somebody that can go full field progression read and be really good at that and be a really anticipatory passer, because he doesn't really provide a whole lot out of structure. Like he does have some athleticism, but it's not like he's scrambling all the time and making crazy throws out of structure. He really wants to beat you on that first read from within the pocket, and if it's not there, it's usually a check down or he's looking to run. And I just don't see like the Josh Allen upside that people try to say that he has. I see like his top end ceiling, and he's got a long way to go before he can get there, but he could be similar to like a Dak Prescott kind of guy. They're like the same exact size. They both have kind of Dak's throwing motion's a bit, it's pretty tight. Like it's not very rotational. It's just, you can't really throw off, with the sidearm angles and stuff like that. At least not, repeatedly. Not going to, try and beat you out of structure all that much. They can do it from time to time, but they're not going to do it all the time. Like if Will Howard can take the same steps that Dak took coming out of Mississippi State with his footwork, with his mental processing, with all that different stuff, and the accuracy, then, yeah, he could be a starting level quarterback in this league. But like saying he has no issues or no problems that he has to develop in the league, like this guy went in the 6th round for a reason, all right? He went on day 3 for a reason, okay? So we just have to be honest with that. $2 with Schuleberg says, a free agency is dead today. Think it picks up tomorrow? I think so. What's up? Cameron Johnston is signing with the Steelers. We got Bill Burr back on the team? No way. All right, well, our first breaking news of the day, right when Schuleberg says free agency is dead, we get a signing for the Steelers, and we have our punter. And it's a good one. I like Cameron Johnston. Who was he with last year? I think he was with the Bills. Let me check real quick. I think he went to the Bills after he got cut by the Steelers. Listen, man. Oh, yeah, that's right. So, all right, Steelers fans, we have our punter, and it's a familiar face, Cameron Johnston, who lost the punter battle last year to Corliss Waitman. Like, dude, I'm telling you, bro, no, this is not edited. This is Cameron Johnston. Tell me that isn't Bill Burr. Dude, it's like a one-of-one copy. That's insane, man. Well, hey, man, I'm happy for Cam. He's a good punter. Like, I remember last year, Mike Tomlin was like, oh, we're keeping Corliss Waitman because he's a lefty, and the lefty spin is going to mess up a bunch of these punt returners. Was there any fumbles from special teams? There might have been one. From the Colts game? Yeah. Wasn't there one in Seattle too? Or the game against Seattle? I can't remember, but like it wasn't. Like Mike Tomlin made it seem like the lefty spin was like a big deal for Corliss Waitman, but Corliss was fine last year. I wish him the best of luck. I'm sure he's getting a starting job somewhere. He certainly punted well enough. But Cameron Johnston's a good kicker, man. If you can punt in Buffalo, you can punt in Pittsburgh, as far as I'm concerned. He stayed healthy last year. So, a little bit of deja vu because we signed him in free agency 2 years ago, and then he got hurt in the first game of the year, and then, the rest is history. Corliss Waitman's been our punter since. But now, Cameron Johnston's here. So, I think it's a good signing. I think this is one that we pair with something else. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, there's only so much. There's only so many things I can say about a punter. Yeah, I'll do a short. We'll hold off on a breaking news VOD though. We'll just go back to super chats. By the way, I did get a Venmo and I did get a PayPal. We'll get to those here in just a second. So I don't want you guys to, if you PayPal'd or Venmo'd, I don't want you to feel like I forgot you. A reunion in Pittsburgh as Cameron Johnston is returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 1-year deal. Wait, do we know if it's a 1-year deal? We don't know. All right, never mind then. All right, let's do this again. A reunion in Pittsburgh as the Steelers are going to be signing Cameron Johnston, the punter that lost their punter battle last preseason to Corliss Waitman. He is back after spending a season with the Buffalo Bills. Johnston was signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 2023 before he got a very serious lower body injury in week 1 of that season and didn't play the rest of the year. Ever since then, Corliss Waitman was the starting punter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now Cameron Johnston, who famously looks exactly like Bill Burr, is returning to the Steel City here. Listen, guys, I think it's a good signing. Johnston's been a good punter in this league for a long time. He's kicked in the elements. Obviously, if you can, punt in Buffalo, you can punt in Pittsburgh, and I think that this is a perfectly fine signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty low-level money contract here, but the Steelers needed a punter, and they got one now. Cameron Johnston returning to the Burgh. All right, let's get that sent. And then we will get back, and then I'll send you a couple of these Venmos and PayPals. And then we'll continue on here with some super chats. Right now we got about 1,000 people in the Steelers chat room right now. Appreciate all the real ones that are stopping by here today to react to everything happening in NFL free agency.
I mean, dude, it looks crazy how much he looks like Bill Burr. Like I genuinely think this was edited, but it's not.
Yeah, Ponzi, he had to literally ask me, "Is this edited?"
Because
and I was like,
I
"No."
found it, and I was like,
"This is real."
Because it comes from Ari Maroff. I don't know if anyone else has it, but looks like Mark Caboli had it as well. I don't know, man. It's crazy. Tom Pelissero's tweet's so funny. Bill Berg.
Well, here's something interesting. Here's something interesting, Ponzi. Former Steelers safety Ryan Watts. You guys remember Ryan Watts? He was a late-round draft pick a couple years ago. Safety, couldn't stay healthy, ended up getting released. He follows me on Twitter. He just liked one of my posts here where I said, a name to watch if the Steelers trade Patrick Queen, which is looking increasingly likely, is Jamal Adams. Adams had the best year he's had in a long time, playing a linebacker-type role for Patrick Graham in Vegas last year. Another name they could consider, a Landon Roberts. So that's a little interesting that Ryan liked my Twitter post there.
Very interesting.
Maybe the Steelers bring back a Landon Roberts. Maybe that's what he's liking it for. Let me just get a quick. Shoot! I got to put in a message here in Short Social. Okay.
We'll get to all your super chats in a minute. What currency is this?
I don't know, but Isaac Flam with a 35, whatever this is, says, "Hey Jack, do you think that we can make the playoffs next season?" Yes, absolutely. I mean, we made the playoffs the last 3 years, and I think this roster has a pretty decent chance of shaping up to be the best roster we've had in the last several years. So, yes, absolutely we can make the playoffs next season. I think the question you should be asking is, can we get more than 10 wins? Because that's what we've got in the last 3 years.
And can you win a playoff game?
Can we take that next step and win, 11, 12, maybe even 13 games next year? And can we win a playoff game? Which, by the way, especially if Rodgers comes back next year, I believe the answers to those questions are potentially yes. Obviously, some things have to go our way, but absolutely that would be a possibility. Okay, I'm going to put out a reaction to this on Twitter. By the way, guys, I I'm going to do a special promotion here, Ponzi. Everyone that follows me on Twitter, @Jack_Sperry, and reposts this stream on X. Okay, so it's my pinned comment at the top of my Twitter account here, guys. Everyone that reposts it and everyone that follows me on Twitter, if you're already following me, all you have to do is repost. Everyone that reposts that post is going to get a special shout out on the show. All right, so you can find me @Jack_Sperry on X. Find the top post, which is this stream, repost it, and I will make sure to give you a shout out.
What timer do we want on this?
Let's do 5 minutes. Next 5 minutes, let's see how many people can repost my pinned tweet.
All right. Brian03. Oh, did we read the last super chat? Yeah, we did.
This one?
No, we haven't read this one.
Yeah, we haven't read this one yet. Okay. Brian03 says, this free agency shows how much Mike Tomlin was holding us back. I mean, obviously he collaborated with Omar Khan, but, like, I agree that Mike Tomlin, as the 19-year tenured head coach, had a lot of say in a lot of the guys they brought in, what the strategy was in the offseason. Now it kind of feels like, it's Mike McCarthy coming in. He certainly has a lot of say as well, but Omar Khan has a little bit more freedom, and he's always been willing to make some of these aggressive moves, and now he's really been aggressive. He hasn't really done much today outside of sign a punter, but I think right now they're trying to work something out with Elton Jenkins, and that's probably the next piece that they're trying to.
That wouldn't go against the comp formula, so that makes sense.
Yeah, they wouldn't go against the comp formula. He's close with Aaron Rodgers. Like, those two were. The Tom Pelissero post is hilarious.
I was just telling you that.
Yeah, I know, but I thought you said Kaboli had it. I was looking at Kaboli's. I was like, I don't see it. And then I saw Pelissero just posted it.
Bill Berg. Bill Berg.
God, dude, it's so good. All right, so we'll pair that with any other breaking news. I'm hoping we get like an Elton Jenkins signing, so we can talk about the Cam Johnson
Hopefully
signing
soon.
In that video. But yeah, okay. Right now, Ponzi, as this timer goes down, I'm going to send you the Venmos and PayPals.
Okay.
And we'll hit those coming up. All right. So Ponzi, if you want to answer the next question, go ahead.
I got you. Says, any news on, or no, my bad. This free agency shows how much Tomlin was holding us back. Maybe.
We just answered that question.
Oh.
F Ponzi in the chat.
F Ponzi. XFI, any news on Aaron Rodgers? $2.
No news.
Nothing.
The
news is we have no news.
He has been abundantly silent through the first 2 days so far.
Another 2 from everyone's favorite, Bernard Nixon. I love A-Rod, but his diva act is getting old. I don't know, man. It really is getting tiring, just waiting on Aaron Rodgers, man.
Well, if you think this is a long time to wait for Rodgers, I mean, you should have been here last year, man. We had to wait till June.
Got another 5 here from Bernard Nixon. Flora always hated A-Rod, and Sims turned on A-Rod because of COVID.
Oh, he did?
I thought Florio said some nice things.
No, he hates him.
Oh, yeah.
He hates him, bro. All right, then we got this one.
Another 5 from Bernard. I think A-Rod is holding the Steelers hostage. I mean, I don't think it's hostage.
Well, so here's the thing. Holding a team hostage implies something. It implies that the Steelers have no choice in the matter. The Steelers are volunteers in this. Like, they want Rodgers back and they're willing to wait for him. It's the same thing as last year's situation. Like, the term holding a team hostage is the way that I think about that term is like if like a star player wants a new contract and the team needs that player on the team to be a Super Bowl contender, he could hold the team hostage by saying, pay me top of market or I'm not playing for you this year. That's holding a team hostage. Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. The Steelers have the ability to go sign someone else if they want to. This is not a situation where the Pittsburgh Steelers are being forced to wait for Rodgers and they have no other options other than that. Like, that's not what's going on here. Like, the Steelers can make a different choice.
Yeah.
And they're choosing not to because they want Aaron Rodgers to be their starting quarterback. And, maybe that's their fault for, maybe walking into this situation where you have to wait and have to deal with this uncertainty and all this different stuff. But, like, I just object to the framing of this situation as the Steelers are being held hostage, because it's hard to be held hostage by a player that's not on your team.
That's fair enough.
So I don't think that's what's going on here at all. And what is he being held hostage for? Like, what is Aaron wanting that, like, he's holding the Steelers hostage for? Like, this, you hold someone hostage because you want a ransom. What is the ransom that Rodgers wants? Like, what does he want from the Steelers that he's not getting? I just don't know. All right, Hudson Jones with a $50 Venmo here. Let's go, Hudson, my man. And he says, 2 Steelers Talk hats, please. One for me and one for my dad. We both love your show and talk about it often. Hudson, thank you for watching the show, my friend. I'm going to make sure you send me an email. Ponzi's going to put my email down there in the comment section. Let me know where you want me to send the hats.
Turn off the money real quick. We appreciate you, Hudson.
Appreciate you, Hudson. Thank you to you and your dad for watching the show. You're a real one, and you guys are going to get your Steelers hats here real soon. Just make sure you send me an email, sperry@chatsports.com, with 1 shipping address or 2 if you want to send it to your dad's place or whatever. We'll make sure to get you your hats as soon as we can. Appreciate you, Hudson. By the way, if you didn't know, $25 Venmo or PayPal donations get you a Steelers Talk channel logo hat.
We'll fill that right after this.
They're usually $50, so they're half off during free agency. So if you want a Steelers Talk hat, this is probably a good time to get you one. So thank you to Hudson for buying himself and buying his dad a hat. To Hudson Jones. All right, got you in my notes here, Hudson. So just send me an email. Make sure to get those hats to you by the end of the week, or at least I'll ship them by the end of the week. Bradley Takash, I hope I'm saying that right, my friend, but a $5 PayPal. And he says, if you could sign MVS at the vet minimum, considering his relationship with Aaron Rodgers, do you think with a full training camp he would be a decent 3rd or 4th wide receiver? Listen, man, after what I saw from him at all of his different spots last year, San Francisco, Seattle, Pittsburgh, like, he's not a good player. Now, it's an interesting point that you make, like, maybe with a full training camp with Rodgers, maybe he, that chemistry gets built up quicker and he's more effective. Listen, if you bring him back, he's got to be on the vet minimum, and he's got to be like your wide receiver 5 in this group. I don't want him anything higher than that. Just like a true designated deep threat type of guy that has some chemistry with Rodgers, but I think we saw what MVS was last year, and it wasn't fantastic. So, honestly, Bradley, I'd probably want to go in a different direction. All right, I'm going to give some shout-outs here to the people that have retweeted or reposted, whatever you guys want to call it, my pinned tweet on my Twitter. Again, I'm at Jack_Sperry. Holy cow, we got 41 people to repost it. All right, this one. So, shout-out to Brandon Crotty. Shout-out to Paul Mack, Steel Logic, Anthony S., Bill. We've got Henry Thomas, Alfred Morrison, Lucas Miller, Labanus, Mike, Jimothy, the Caster. Hope I'm saying that right, my friend. Seth, Big Mike Kittle, Branley Corlu, Ball Sacks, nice. Gavin Kunselman, Caden Barrett, Kyrie, Javon Bashara, Sam, Pudgy MKB, Moneyberg, Walks, Thomas Mainfield, Clifford X. Gullett, Henry Rumfelt, Manny Griffin, Jay, Cruzito, Czar Craig, Bryson, Jay Breezy, JJ, and Jacob Watson. Thank you guys so much for sharing that on your social media platforms. Now let's get to Michael's question. Says, I'd rather not have Rodgers back. Go for Kyler or maybe try swinging a deal for AR-15. And if that fails, roll with Howard and draft quarterback next year. We need a QB with youth on his side and has mobility. Well, I mean, I guess what I would say there, Michael, is would you have recommended the Tampa Bay Buccaneers not sign a 43-year-old Tom Brady in 2020? Seemed to work out for them. Now, you might be saying, oh, different quarterbacks, different situations. That's all fair enough. But, like, we just saw Matthew Stafford, who's an older, non-mobile quarterback, win NFL MVP with 1 rushing yard. So, like, for me, if you have high levels of football intelligence, like Rodgers clearly does, if you have your arm strength and your arm talent still with you, Rodgers clearly still does, and you have a good play caller and you have good weapons around you, you can still have success as an in-structure playmaker without, the mobility and the playmaking ability. Now, obviously, because he doesn't bring the playmaking ability to the table, he's got to be really, really good inside structure if the Steelers are gonna compete next year. But keep this in mind, man. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers healthy inside a stable organization and with a good wide receiver room since 2021. It's the last year he won an MVP. In 2022, Davante Adams leaves the Packers, and he played half the season on a broken thumb. Then in 2023, he tears his Achilles. Then in 2024, he is not inside a functioning organization. He's got the receivers, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams. Everything else was terrible. No run game. Head coach gets fired early in the season. Offensive coordinator gets demoted. Defense was terrible after Saleh got fired. Had no supporting cast around him. So there's that. Then last year, no wide receiver room again. Like he had DK Metcalf, and he had a bunch of guys that couldn't get open. So defenses just double-teamed DK, and there was no opportunities to throw the ball down the field. And despite that, Rodgers got this team to 10 wins, had the best quarterback season for a QB here in Pittsburgh in many seasons, got this team to above league average in points per game for the first time in many seasons, despite that bad wide receiver room. And he delivered multiple game-winning drives that saved the Steelers' season. Like, are you really not interested to see what Rodgers would look like with a better wide receiver room this year, with Michael Pittman being added and probably a first-round pick at receiver being added as well? And Pat Freiermuth is going to be used more? And we have a better play caller this year in Mike McCarthy compared to what we had last year in Arthur Smith? I just feel like, mobility and playmaking is something that's, it can be important. It can lower the bar for a quarterback in terms of how much they need to do from an in-structure standpoint. But as long as you can mentally process the defense the way that Rodgers can and can throw the ball the way Rodgers can, as long as you got guys in the wide receiver room that can get open for him and are trustworthy and, can help him win from within structure down the field, I think we're looking at a situation here where you can see Rodgers play at a higher level next year than he did last season, even though he's a year older and even though he's 43 years old. For example, Justin Fields clearly has some playmaking ability, has the rushing ability, but he couldn't win from the pocket, and that's how you win in the National Football League. You got to win from the pocket, and I think that is the more foundational aspect of a passing game. And with Kyler, he really doesn't do that. He's a one-read quarterback most of the time from within the pocket because past his first read, he can't really see over his offensive line. So he has to really rely on out-of-structure playmaking. And, if a defense is good, they can put an end to that pretty quickly. And we've seen Kyler against really good defenses really struggle in his career. Not to mention, he's not used to playing outside. He's got really small hands, and he's got to play with a wet football late in the season when it's snowing and raining here in Pittsburgh. With Anthony Richardson, he completed less than 50% of his passes in 2024, and he hasn't played in a year. And because of the orbital fracture, he hasn't been able to develop in practice. I think AR-15 is an interesting, backup option to Aaron Rodgers if Rodgers comes back. But, in terms of competing for this year, I think Rodgers gives this team the best chance. I respect your opinion, Michael. Everyone's entitled to their opinion there. But for me, respectfully, I think Rodgers, clearly gives this team the best chance to compete this year. And then you get to 2027, and you can draft your quarterback. Hopefully there's 5 or 6 first-round caliber quarterbacks that you could choose from and maybe trade up for one. That's something that is definitely on the table at this point. Thanks for your question, Michael. All right, if you guys want to pick up a Steelers Talk t-shirt, you guys can go to chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. Those are $24.99 on our website right now. Perfect for Latrobe, perfect for Steelers game days, perfect for watch parties, all that different stuff. So chatsports.com/Steelers Talk for that one. Then also we have St. Patty's Day t-shirts that are only available until St. Patrick's Day, so we're getting really close here. Chatsports.com/Pitt Green for the Steelers one, chatsports.com/DC Green for the Commanders one. And the Commanders one actually comes in black as well, if you guys prefer the black option. So today, you guys can get express shipping, $5 off when you guys go to our website. Again, it's either chatsports.com/Pitt Green or chatsports.com/DC Green. If you press the express shipping button, you get $5 off that express shipping. It's usually $10. It's now $5, so you can get your t-shirt in time for St. Patrick's Day. Also, we have Beers hats on our website, chatsports.com/beers, to pick those up. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. Why are they saying this? Like, somebody's saying the Steelers have re-signed Cameron Johnston. You can't re-sign somebody that wasn't on your team last year. All right, we just got a Venmo. Send it your way. And again, guys, if you want Steelers Talk hats, like our friend Hudson Jones did, you guys can purchase a Steelers Talk hat for $25 via Venmo or PayPal donation. You can find me at Jack-Berry on Venmo or at Captain Jackrabbit on PayPal. Once again, appreciate your guys' support on that front. And we got a $5 Venmo here from Lee Brooks. And he says, do you think we trade up for Carnell Tate or another top wide receiver in the draft? Oh, yeah. F. Ponzi. Love the show, fellas. Okay. Love that, by the way, Lee. I don't think it's impossible that they could trade up for Carnell Tate if he, starts falling. Obviously played with Will Howard at Ohio State. I'm sure that's, a part of the appeal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if he's necessarily the mold that I would think would be the piece that they're looking to add here, because he's known as an outside deep threat contested catch type of dude. Runs a 4.52, so he's not a burner. He's not known as a super dynamic route runner. He's not a bad route runner. He's a good route runner actually, but he doesn't bring as much juice athletically as some of the other guys in the first round that could go. Guys like Omar Cooper Jr. and Casey Concepcion. And I think Tate's a better prospect than those other two guys. But I think because you've got two big body guys on your team already, Pittman is a slower dude. DK's fast, but he's got a limited route tree because of his size. I feel like they need somebody that can change directions, run the complete route tree, run after the catch, and take the top off the defense, because you want these guys to be able to play in different spots and keep a defense on their toes. So for me, I think that if they trade up for a receiver, somebody that actually makes a lot of sense for them is Jordan Tyson, because the guy that reminds me of Tyson a lot, or the two guys that Tyson reminds me of on tape, and these are two big names, so it's a lot to live up to if he stays healthy, are Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. Because, JJ and CD, they're relatively big body guys. They're not ginormous. They're not DK Metcalf level big, but they're bigger guys, but they have really fluid hips, and they get in and out of their breaks extremely quickly. They're so detail-oriented in their routes. They're good after the catch as well. They can play in the slot. They can play outside. And especially because, CeeDee Lamb had so much success in that offense with Mike McCarthy. They still run a McCarthy-style offense in Dallas under Brian Schottenheimer. I feel like Jordan Tyson would be an unbelievable fit inside Mike McCarthy's offense. And he's got legitimate, number one wide receiver potential. He could come in and be, he could go into camp being your wide receiver 3, but by the end of the season, I think, there's a good chance he's your wide receiver 2. He overtakes Pittman as this team's wide receiver 2. And honestly, down the road, I think there's a decent chance he turns into this team's number 1 over DK Metcalf by the end of his rookie contract. So, if they trade up for somebody, I think Jordan Tyson actually makes a lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mekhi Lemon also makes sense. Slot weapon could certainly work. Reminds me of Jackson Smith and Jigba, play style-wise. Little bit of a weird personality, Ponzi. I don't know what he was on at the Combine, but he's another guy that could work. I think Omar Cooper Jr. would be amazing in this offense as well, with his yak ability, with his vertical threat ability, his route running. He has it all. Like, Omar Cooper Jr. legitimately has it all, can make tough catches down the field. Like, remember Omar Cooper Jr.'s catch against Penn State this year to win the game? Like, I know Fernando Mendoza, that was like Fernando Mendoza's Heisman moment this year. That catch, that play was made by Omar Cooper Jr. To make that catch in the back of the end zone and to still get 2 feet down, he didn't even need 2 feet. He still got 2 feet down. It's just an unbelievable play. So I definitely wouldn't mind trading up for Carnell Tate this year. I don't want anybody to think that like I'm an anti-Carnell Tate, but I think in terms of trying to find complementary pieces that can work off of each other in this offense, someone like Jordan Tyson would be a slam dunk for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. And, really the main concern with him is the injuries, Lee. But, he's never really never really been bad. He always comes back from his injuries better. So, I think that, the Steelers have taken some players with some injury risk in the past. Troy Fautano, Peyton Wilson, Corey Trice Jr., a lot of these guys that have been flagged for medical stuff. Asante Samuel Jr. as well. It seems like the Steelers doctors are a lot more lenient on flagging players for injury. So if Tyson gets into the mid-teens, I think there's a good chance the Steelers could trade up for him. Dan with a 5 here says, how would you feel about signing Aaron Rodgers and trading for Richardson to compete against Howard? This is a plan I can get behind, Ponzi, because you bring in Aaron Rodgers, who we know is an awesome quarterback mentor. Just ask Will Howard. And you can bring in Anthony Richardson on something similar to like a Justin Fields trade, like a conditional 6th-round pick. If he plays a certain amount of snaps over, this season or maybe the 2027 season, it converts into this pick, right? 4th-round pick or something like that. And the plan could be, okay, for this year we have Aaron Rodgers. We're going to try and compete with this roster this year with Rodgers at quarterback. Then 2027, we'll reevaluate the quarterback position after we get a year to see what Richardson does and see what Howard does in practices this year, and see which one looks better and which one's going to be our future. And who knows, maybe in 2027, you could have a competition between these two guys as well, if you like both of them. Or if you don't think that either of them is a legitimate option for you, you can always draft a quarterback in 2027. That option's still available to you. So Richardson's still on his rookie contract. You'd have to make a decision on a 5th-year option if you trade for him, though. So I could see this being the case. It's a similar situation to what the Steelers did with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields a few years ago. You have the veteran option that's here to win now, and then you have, the upside younger option. And the thing about Richardson is that his upside is legitimately sky high. Like, if you want somebody that has the upside of being somebody of the caliber of a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, and competing with all these great quarterbacks in the AFC, like, Richardson is one of those guys that, because he's 240, has special athletic ability, has a cannon for an arm. Like, the sky is the limit for that guy. Now, obviously, he's had multiple years in the league, and he hasn't shown really anything as an NFL quarterback, but he's still young. Mike McCarthy is known for his quarterback development ability. You give him a year behind Aaron Rodgers to kind of learn how to process defenses, learn how to have proper footwork in the pocket, learn how to take a snap under center the right way, and under center footwork, all that stuff. Like, Richardson could be special. Like, he could be. It's not a guarantee, but like for a 6th-round, compensate or what's the word I'm thinking of here? Conditional. For a conditional 6th or something like that, I think it's worth the gamble. Now, if you're bringing him in to compete with Howard for the starting job this year, I don't know if I like that as much, right? Because you're expecting him to take that big leap this year, not in 2027. I like the idea a lot more of Richardson sitting for a year, learning from Rodgers and McCarthy, and then being ready to have his turn in 2027. And the same thing goes for a guy like Drew Aller, by the way. Like, if you draft Drew Aller, I think what makes sense for him is a situation where he can go and sit for a while behind a veteran and learn proper footwork and learn under center footwork and learn all these different things because, I think he's got some potential as well. But obviously it wasn't realized in college, and I think that he needs to spend a little bit of time developing his game before he's ready to go out there and face NFL defenses. So that's what I'll say about that, Dan. I guess we'll see what happens. $2 from Jordan Brown says, didn't the Steelers give Aaron Rodgers a deadline for tomorrow? Have you seen anything on this, Ponzi? Is this something that happened while we've been live?
I think this was like what we talked about, like maybe a lot earlier in the offseason when we talked about a social, or maybe like a quote where it was like the Steelers are giving Aaron Rodgers until free agency or prefer to have it before free agency.
Because it sounds like the Steelers really don't want to put a deadline on Rodgers.
Yeah, like I think that was something that we heard murmurs of, but I don't remember if that was something we talked about.
I'm not seeing anything on Twitter alluding to that. So I don't think they've given him a deadline for tomorrow, Jordan.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think, there is no deadline. Obviously, Omar was like, we don't want this to drag on, as everyone else doesn't.
And I feel like
except Aaron.
I feel like the Steelers don't want to put on a deadline on Rodgers because Rodgers will be offended by that. I think that's part of it. Is that they're trying. They
don't want to hurt his no feelings.
They're trying to tiptoe around him a little bit. Because they know that he's clearly, at this point, at least in my opinion, he's clearly their best option for this year. But the Steelers always have the option, okay? They always have the option to go in a different direction. They had that option last year. They have that option this year, okay? They have the option to trade for Anthony Richardson. They have the option to sign Kirk Cousins. They have the option to try and sign Kyler Murray tomorrow, which they might do, by the way. It's possible they could try and sign Kyler Murray tomorrow. But the thing about the Kyler thing is that you can prefer Kyler to Rodgers, but it's another thing to say it's a realistic possibility because I think Kyler clearly wants to go to Minnesota, and if Minnesota wants him back, that's going to get done. He's going to pick Minnesota over Pittsburgh. There's just no question about that. So the only way the Steelers would even have a chance at Kyler is if the Vikings sign somebody else at quarterback. So if you're hoping Kyler Murray is a Steeler, you better be on your knees begging the Minnesota Vikings to sign Rodgers today.
Yeah.
So Kyler can't go to Minnesota. So just keep that in mind. I think the only way Kyler's a Steeler tomorrow is if Rodgers goes to the Vikings today, which, by the way, I don't think is like an impossibility. Like the Vikings apparently were in on Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Like what if they were in on Geno at the vet minimum, but they're like, we don't really like Kyler's fit in our offense. We like Rodgers' fit better. Even if we have to pay a little bit more to bring in Rodgers, we want to bring him in instead. And honestly, if I'm the Vikings, I think I might rather have, because here's the thing about Kevin O'Connell's offense, guys. It's a lot of under center. It's a lot of heavy personnel. It's a lot of play action shot plays from under center. That is not Kyler Murray's game. That's what they tried to do with him in Arizona, and it failed miserably because he can't see over the middle of the field. You have to have a shotgun-heavy, screen-heavy, play-action, bootleg-heavy, moving the launch point style of offense to have success with Kyler Murray. You have to really design the offense around Kyler's skill set because if you try to run, that traditional drop-back game from under center, he's not built for it. And that's what Minnesota usually likes to do. So unless Kevin O'Connell is okay switching up his offense, which is possible, I think that Rodgers probably fits that style better. But even then, Rodgers isn't a perfect fit. Rodgers likes to have control at the line of scrimmage. He likes shotgun more than pretty much anybody in the league. So honestly, I don't know if I love either fit for the Minnesota Vikings. But they obviously have to sign someone because they can't go into next year with just J.J. McCarthy. I don't think it's a good idea to bring back Kirk Cousins. So they're going to do something here over the next probably 48 hours in Minnesota. And then when that domino falls, I think whoever goes to Minnesota, the other one probably ends up in Pittsburgh. Is that crazy to think? I think that's probably...
I don't think it's too crazy.
Unless Rodgers retires, which, by the way, if Rodgers retires at this point, and if he has led the Steelers to this point, because according to all the reports, the Steelers, whatever Rodgers told them in these conversations, it has them believing he's going to be their starting quarterback. So, like, if he was essentially misleading the Steelers in their conversations and then decides to retire and leaves the Steelers with no options at quarterback for next season, I'm going to fucking hate him. I am. Like, at this point, if you're going to retire, you should have let the team know before free agency so that they could do something about it.
Yeah.
Now, if he signs with the team, fine. You took your time. You took whatever you need. You did whatever you needed to do. But at the end of the day, the result's the same. You're with the team. And I think that the Steelers will have a pretty decent chance to be pretty good with him at quarterback next year.
Yeah.
But, like, if he takes all this time and the Steelers – and he makes the Steelers think that he's coming back and, whatever he's told them, it clearly has the Steelers believing he's going to be back. And then after all that, after the start of free agency, after all the top quarterback options are off the board, oh, sorry, Pittsburgh, I'm retiring. You know what my response to him is going to be then? Fuck you, man. Like, that's a fucking bullshit way to do things. It just is. So, like, pressure's on Aaron Rodgers because, like, I'm more than willing to support this guy, but, like, I completely understand why Steelers fans are frustrated. And I will be right there with every Steelers fan out there if he decides to retire next week when all the good quarterback options are off the table. Like, that would just be a dick move. It just would be. Now, hopefully that's not the case, and he ends up signing with the Steelers. And if he signs with the Vikings, that allows us to get Kyler Murray, and I'm fine with doing that for a year. But, like, if he decides to retire after all the other good options are off the table, fuck you, Aaron Rodgers. Like, plain simply. Like, that's where I'm at with that.
Just to give a recap of both teams' free agency so far, obviously it's been kind of a quiet day for both the Commanders and Steelers, only one signing between both teams, and that is Cameron Johnson, punter for the Steelers. But, of course, yesterday, Odafe Oweh, Marcus Mariota, Settle, Burks, Moody. Kind of disappointing, not going to lie, from the Commanders front. Apparently they're in second place a lot. There's not a lot of first place getting these signings going. But man, it's been for offseason where Adam Peters really had to prove himself. Like, really had to go, hey, I have the free agency money to do things. This has gone pretty poorly, in my opinion.
Yep. Disappointing for sure. I like the Oweh signing. I don't hate the Settle signing at all. It feels underwhelming because there's so many spots that I would personally want to address. Because right now, if the Commanders had to play a game, you would have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Brandon Coleman at left guard, Nick Allegretti at center, Sam Cosmi at right guard, and Josh Conley Jr. at right tackle. That's not a good enough offensive line to me for a team that wants to run the ball more next year. And you've got kind of a brittle starting quarterback, and you got to protect him. Like, make a move along the offensive line. Like, that's the spot where you got to be making moves here.
And for a team that has this many needs, Barry, like, I don't know, man. Like,
especially on the offensive side of the ball. Like, honestly, you can make an argument that the defense is in an okay spot right now.
Even though, like, I feel like the defense was what kind of held this team back last year, I don't disagree with you. I think,
the front's pretty good. They've made multiple signings along the defensive line. It sounds like they're going to play Luvu. It sounds like McGee's going to start this year. So maybe they add a third linebacker to that, but, like, they've got their two starters. It sounds like they like Quan Martin and Will Harris for another year. I might disagree with that. I think Quan Martin stinks, but, like, maybe Quan is a better fit for this new defense. Like, I'm sure that's probably why they're changing defensive philosophies, is because they think they can get more out of guys like Quan Martin and Mike Samerstroh than they have in the past, and they don't want to give up on those guys. Obviously, you signed a corner yesterday, so, like, that needs taken care of. But, like, on the offensive side of the ball, Ponzi, like, I know you've got a quarterback that is a potential future superstar and league MVP in Jaden Daniels, but you got to put, like, if last year showed you anything, is you got to put help around him. Like, Terry McLaurin, if he gets injured, we saw last year what it looks like. It's not pretty. So you don't have a wide receiver 2 on the team right now. You do not have a legit wide receiver 3 on the team right now. If we played a game today, the Commanders would play Terry McLaurin at the 1, Luke McCaffrey at the 2, and Jalen Lane at the 3. That's unacceptable for a team that wants to take that next step next year. And like we said, that offensive line, the way that it's currently constructed, not good enough. I would like to add a tight end as well, a pass-catching tight end, a legit pass-catching tight end, because I see Ben Sinnott more as like a yak threat, more as like a fullback even, than like a true like Zach Ertz replacement. So to me, this team still has a lot of things that they need to address, especially on offense, and they're not doing anything. Now, I think that we can pencil in Brandon Ayuk as the wide receiver 2. But that still leaves the need at wide receiver 3. That still leaves the need at center. That still leaves the need at left guard. And it still leaves the need at running back. Like, go sign Rachaad White. What's preventing you from signing Rachaad White? He would want. I guarantee you, he'd want to come here.
He literally posted himself on his Twitter in his Arizona State uniform.
Yes.
Like, this is a team.
Like, what are we doing, man? Like, Rachaad White would clearly want to come play here. He might even take a little bit of a discount to come play with his college quarterback and his college teammate, Brandon Ayuk, who I'm guessing is going to sign tomorrow.
Like, for a team, like, because we've heard this. Alec Pierce chose the Colts. Commanders offered more money. Okay, that's fine. They tried to pivot to Romeo Doubs. Commanders offered him more money. He wanted to play with Drake May. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
If I were Romeo, I would probably make the same decision, if I'm being honest.
But the whole thing that it comes down to is, like, it feels like we did those two, like, hey, these guys are going to sign with us. And one of them didn't. But now both of them didn't. So now we're looking at, you need to pivot. And if you're Adam Peters, what are you doing? Why is this pivot taking so long?
And we've got so much money, and they've got so much money to spend.
Like, we can take a look back at the team card.
And this reminds me so much of last year's free agency, guys, because, like, yeah, they traded for Debo, and yeah, they traded for Laramie Tunsil, but, like, their biggest move of free agency was, like, Javon Kinlaw. Like, it wasn't a very spendy free agency period, and they had a lot of money to spend last year.
Like, now they're still second in the NFL after their signing of Odafe Owe.
Yeah.
So, like,
well, I mean,
this is projected. This is kind of like
we don't know a lot of the structures of the contracts yet.
But like, even this is including the Owe contract because the terms were released on that. But man, like, I got to think about it from a team perspective with this much money. Like, you don't have that many draft picks. Like, it's just, I mean, dude, what are we doing, Adam Peters? Like, go get Darnell Mooney. Go get him. Go get Jawan Jennings. If you really want your guy, you want to pair Brandon Ayuk, pair him up with Jawan Jennings. They were good in San Fran when they were healthy. But, like, the fact is, we haven't heard anything from the Commanders front in quite a while, other than they've just been second on some teams or some players. And that's all we've heard.
Yeah.
And it's just really feeling like an offseason where we kept mentioning it. We were expecting fireworks.
And we've gotten one big signing.
We've gotten one firework and a bunch of crap. Not to call these guys crap, but not exactly an explosion.
All right, let's see what the Steelers situation looks like here. They still have, money to spend. They're, it's not a whole lot, but they could create more. Keep that in mind.
They could.
They have options. They could restructure T.J. Watt. They could restructure DK Metcalf. They could cut Patrick Queen. That would save quite a bit of money if they wanted to do that. So the Steelers have options to, do some stuff here. But, we'll just have to see. It sounds like the Steelers have gotten calls on Patrick Queen. Teams are interested in him. And, we talked about this earlier in the show, Ponzi. I'm personally interested in maybe clearing some, spending in that particular room, because I'm personally not a big believer in spending a lot of money in your linebacker room, because like outside of like the really top echelon guys, like the Fred Warners of the world, the Luke Kuechly's of the world, the Bobby Wagners in their primes, like linebacker is just not a position where, players have a giant impact on the game. Honestly, the biggest impact that they tend to have is if you're really bad. Like if you can't tackle, or if you're really slow, like Bobby Wagner was last year with the Commanders, by the way. Like if you can't, like if you're awful in pass defense, like those are the ways. It's kind of like, for me, linebacker is almost like the offensive line for the defense, because like the how do I put this? hard to be a ginormous impact as an offensive lineman because there's 5 of you, right? And the weakest link is the one that's always going to be the one that gets exploited. And if you fail, like, everyone hates you. But if you're doing your job really well, no one talks about you. It's unless you're like the Fred Warner, Luke Kuechly, you're making plays all over the place. Like, if you're a good linebacker, you really don't worry about them too much, right? And my philosophy on linebacker spending is you want players in there that are serviceable, that can that are reliable tacklers, that can do their job in pass defense. They don't have to be superstars or anything like that. It's nice if you have one, and I would pay a superstar linebacker big money. But I'm not giving big money, and I don't want to spend big money, and I don't want a large portion of my cap allocated to a player that's not performing at that star level. And Patrick Queen is making that kind of money. I think his cap is like $18+ million this year for Pittsburgh, and he's not been anywhere close to that level. Now, is it possible he gets closer to that level in Patrick Graham's defense compared to what Terrell Austin's defense asked of him? Absolutely. We've seen a number of linebackers go from the Steelers to other places and play a lot better. Robert Spillane, who went from the Steelers to, guess what, Patrick Graham's defense in Las Vegas, and Robert Spillane is a really good player. Devin Bush left the Steelers, was one of the worst linebackers in football when he was here. Goes to Cleveland, all of a sudden he's getting a good contract now. And I can't remember where he's going, but he just signed with the team, I believe. And, we've seen linebackers come here and get worse, like Patrick Queen, right? So I still think Peyton Wilson has a lot of untapped potential because of what Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin asked him to do.
And
in
maybe
this
that's their answer a little bit?
Yeah, for me, like, if you traded Patrick Queen for a 5th, that saves you $13.3 million, and you get an additional day 3 pick, right? And what that allows you to do is maybe sign a Leo Chanel, who could be your replacement. And right now he's projected at just a $6 million per season price tag. I would much rather have Leo Chanel at $6 million than Patrick Queen at 18.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you got Peyton Wilson and Malik Harrison. Harrison's a thumper. You got Wilson, that's more of a coverage linebacker. And then then you got Holcomb as a decent piece as well. So you got depth, but you're not spending a whole lot at that position, right? I think that's the right way to do it, is you have multiple players that are capable of doing the job on modest contracts. But, it's okay not to have that impact player at the linebacker position. You want your impact players at safety nowadays. You want them at corner. You want them along the defensive line. Linebacker is the least impactful position on the NFL football field in the modern NFL. So, for the Steelers, who currently have the second most money allocated to the linebacker room, if you can get a decent draft pick for Patrick Queen, I would be willing to unload him, especially if you can bring in somebody like a Leo Chanel that can be, a good replacement for him. All right.
Trying to figure out.
So we'll probably stay live for another 30 minutes or so. See if there's a signing of some kind. Get some breaking news, and of course, when signings come in, we will let you know. But certainly a slower day today, yeah. Ponzi. Yesterday there was a ton of signings. Boom, 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 boom. Today a couple more signings. Romeo Doubs, and then the trade for Geno, and a couple of those bigger moves, but there's still some good players out there to be had, and especially if I'm the Washington Commanders guys, like I want Adam Peters to get going on the offensive side of the ball. Like that team needs help on the offensive line.
I think ultimately the Commanders can get away with signing Rachaad White, quality left guard, maybe even bring back Chris Paul. I wasn't
Paul's fine.
Paul's fine. Like, if you can't, Elijah Vera Tucker was probably the top guard, but, Chris Paul's fine. But, I think, you get away with the left guard signing, that's quality. Rachaad White, Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk tomorrow. I'm feeling pretty decent into the draft. Now, I would like to get maybe a linebacker, another secondary help, but, I'm not going to complain. I think with this defense, it really does rise to talent. I think, whenever you take this Durante Jones defense on paper, it should be a lot easier to work with in terms of the lesser talent you have with the Commanders. Mikey, I think he could work a little bit better Obviously, we've been harsh on him in the past, but I think, he could probably bounce back. Players that Quan, Trey Amos is coming back. I think the good thing is that the Commanders got rid of a lot of the slow people on their team.
Lattimore, Wagner. But still, a lot of the same pieces are still back. You've made some additions like Owe and
I like Owe.
Settle and
4.3 speed, long guy. I think he was probably my perfect fit to the Commanders. Now a lot of people in the Commanders chat are talking about Trey Hendrickson. I just don't see the fit.
Yeah,
apparently he's asking for 30.
Yeah, he's asking for 30. Apparently teams are only offering him low 20s.
Okonkwo is a good one as well for the Commanders, tight end.
Yeah, he's more of a yak threat to me. And honestly, he's pretty similar stylistically to a guy like Ben Sinnott in my mind. So, for me, if I'm the Commanders, I'm looking for that safety blanket tight end, somebody that can sit in those soft spots and zones, somebody with reliable hands, somebody that can be for Jaden Daniels what Zach Ertz has been over the last several years. I would honestly rather sign Zach Ertz than Chig Okonkwo, personally, just because of the value and the type of player Zach is. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd rather sign, I would even probably prefer Darren Waller. Darren Waller played really well for the Miami Dolphins last year, guys. He was a legitimate receiving tight end, long limbs. He's got experience, obviously, and I honestly don't hate the fit. I don't. He's a terrible blocker, which is maybe not something the Commanders want, but you got John Bates to be your blocking tight end.
You're not going to ask Darren Waller to block. I think,
And he shouldn't come very expensive either. You could probably get him,
I really thought, Darren Waller was going to go to Miami just because, I thought either him or Geno Smith. But, he's still on the board and he still wants to play apparently, so, he came out of retirement last year. I think Dallas Goedert, another former Philly tight end.
I would sign Goddard, absolutely. Goddard is getting older, but he can play that role that Zach Ertz played, where he's that very reliable piece. When you watched the Eagles' offense over the last 2 years in particular, it always seemed like when they were in a third and something situation and they really got to have a completion. Goddard was the guy that they went to on a corner route or something.
Hurts trusted him.
And Hurts trusted him. And I think that, we poached a former Eagles tight end before in Zach Ertz. And over the last 2 years, Ertz has been pretty good for the Commanders. Goddard, I think, could play a pretty similar role. Now, I don't know how much money he's asking for. I'm sure he's asking for more money than what the market is willing to pay him. So he's going to have to come down on his price tag. And we'll see what that looks like. But something that I'll say, guys, is absolutely this is a slower day for pretty much every team in the National Football League. Not a whole lot of signings or movement or anything like that. Couple signings, but I think things are really going to start picking up tomorrow once the new league year begins, because all these players that are going to be released at the new league year are going to become available. Kyler and Aaron Jones, Javon Hargrave becomes available tomorrow. Brandon Ayuk, and some of these, pieces become available. And once those pieces come off the market, then some of the pieces that haven't been signed yet in the legal tampering period begin coming off the board, and we get another kind of wave at the end of the week of signings and things that these teams do. And really, both teams right now, Steelers and Commanders, really have needs, in my opinion, that they still need to address. Can we actually take a look at the positions of need for the Steelers?
Yeah.
Because we looked at the Commanders and we saw that a bunch of offensive positions, right? Running back, both receiver spots, center and left guard. Adam Peters needs to get going on the offensive side of the ball. But then with the Steelers here, there's also some positions. Now, punter's been taken care of with Cam Johnston, but they obviously still need quarterback. They're waiting on Aaron Rodgers. They still need a left guard. There's multiple good veteran options still out there. And Jerry Dulac, I believe, said last night that the next move the Steelers make will be for a left guard. So that tells me the Steelers are trying to get Elton Jenkins. And I think Jenkins might be, playing the field, seeing what the offers look like. But I do expect the Steelers to definitely be in play for Elton Jenkins. And that would be an awesome signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I do think that eventually they'll bring in, another wide receiver. I definitely think they'll draft a wide receiver early in the NFL draft, but they want to get another veteran in there, someone like a Jalen Tolbert or Brandon Cooks, or if we're lucky, a guy like Darnell Mooney. I still think they need a nose tackle. Now, a big question for the Steelers this year, Ponzi, is how do they feel about Keanu Benson? Because Benson has played nose tackle here for the last several years, and he's been a liability in run defense, just being driven backwards against double teams, not being able to sink his hips and anchor. He's disruptive, and, I think Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin, valued that disruption over, overall play strength and anchor ability against the run. And as a result, if Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon weren't on the field last year, there would be two people getting blown the fuck off the ball, and it would create giant holes in the Steelers' run defense for big parts of the season. And I think Keanu Benson's a big reason why the Steelers' run defense, along with Patrick Queen, quite frankly, and Peyton Wilson not being, in the right spots at the right time, it's been a big reason why the Steelers' run defense has not been particularly good over the last couple of years. But if you get a Dalvin Tomlinson or an A'Shawn Robinson or a Deshaun Hand, one of these guys that really does anchor down and sinks those hips and really takes on those double teams and is that tree stump type of nose tackle on early downs, that could really transform the way that this Pittsburgh Steelers defense against the run operates on early downs. So I like Keanu Benson. I think that he could be Cam Hayward's long-term replacement at the 4I along with Derek Harmon. And he's very disruptive, very athletic. That's the type of role he should be in. But with the role that he was played in the previous regime, nose tackle, it just wasn't a fit. It just wasn't good. So I'm hoping that that Patrick Graham and Mike McCarthy see that and they fix that issue. But obviously they haven't brought in a nose tackle yet. And then maybe safety, maybe nickel corner, depending on how they feel about Asante Samuel Jr., where they want to play Jalen Ramsey. Asante Samuel Jr.'s never played in the slot, so that would certainly be an experiment if that's their plan at slot corner. Still have Brandon Echols on the roster. He's a serviceable starting slot corner if you want to go that route. But honestly, man, if I'm the Steelers, I'd want to play Jalen Ramsey at big nickel. He's one of the best, run defending, defensive backs in football. Long arms, physical. He's an anticipatory player. I just think he's a better fit at nickel than safety, and I think there's still enough good safety players out there that the Steelers could go out and get one. Offensive tackle is another one that they could go get if they don't feel like Dylan Cook is their best option at left tackle. Still have Broderick Jones on the roster. I would personally just be okay going with Dylan Cook, and hopefully Broderick can get healthy enough before camp next year to compete with him. But Cook played really well last year. He had some losses against Danielle Hunter in the playoff game, but guess what? Everyone loses against Danielle Hunter. So then at inside linebacker, if you let go of Patrick Queen, then that becomes a need for the Steelers to fill out that fourth spot in the room. And that's where I'm at right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hopefully they can address some of these needs before the end of free agency. But honestly, Ponzi, at the very least, you get a decent quarterback, you get your starting left guard. If that's the only two moves that they make the rest of the way, I can live with it. I would like to add some more pieces than just those two spots, but those are really the two spots you desperately need to make additions at.
Yeah.
$2 here from Darshall Wright from our Commanders. How do you see the rest of free agency playing out? Probably today is going to be slow. Tomorrow's going to be where it picks up.
Yeah, tomorrow when the new league year starts, another crop of players become available because they're being cut from teams. And obviously the Kyler Murray decision probably comes tomorrow. It's probably going to be for the Minnesota Vikings. And honestly, once that domino falls and once Rodgers knows that Minnesota's off the table, that might be when he makes the decision to return to Pittsburgh. So, but if we get to the end of Thursday and he still hasn't made his decision, I think the Steelers have to have a pretty serious conversation of okay, he hasn't made his decision yet. Realistically, how long are we willing to wait before we move on and maybe trade for an Anthony Richardson or sign a Kirk Cousins or Joe Flacco or maybe trade for a Will Levis here's another possibility, Ponzi. I don't like this possibility, but there's two more trade options that would be on the table if the Steelers are done waiting for Rodgers and Kyler goes to Minnesota specifically. Derek Carr which I don't love because he doesn't play well in the cold. He's taken a year off. He was mediocre when he was in the league before. Don't love that option at all, especially because you have to trade a draft pick and you have to inherit his contract, which is pretty hefty. The other option that could become a possibility is J.J. McCarthy. And I have never been a J.J. McCarthy guy. I thought that he rode the coattails off of a awesome roster there at Michigan, his national championship year. And he made some big plays during that postseason run, sure. And, he's got decent arm strength. It's just he never throws with touch. He throws off his front foot way too much. He is a very vertical type of passer. And, he leans very, very heavily, which just fucks up his accuracy. He is an overstrider. It's just he doesn't have good throwing mechanics at all. He's got a lot of physical talent, but people talk about he's so physically talented, but he's not even that dynamic of a rusher. He's got some athleticism and he can move a little bit, but he's not that big of a guy. He doesn't have a bazooka of an arm. It's good arm strength, but at Michigan, it was very much one read and the guy's open, so I'm throwing it to him. There's not really a mental processor in there, or at least not a good one, at least right now. But he was a former first-round pick. And if the Vikings bring in Kyler, that's their future at quarterback. If you're bringing in Kyler Murray, you're giving up on J.J. McCarthy, period.
Yeah.
He's done. So he's available for trade. And probably for relatively cheap on the trade market. I don't know what he would go for.
It was crazy.
If the Steelers trade anything more than a fifth-round pick for him, they're crazy, in my opinion.
Didn't the Vikings have an offer the Vikings have an offer from the Raiders on the table for a first-round pick for McCarthy?
Yeah, they nearly traded him to the Raiders last year. How about that? That would have been a disaster.
Crazy how the world
Imagine
works.
J.J. McCarthy, how bad he was in that situation in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell and the best receiver in football, one of the best wide receiver twos in the game. Imagine what it would have been if he was in that Raiders situation.
I wonder what
that would have been
would say.
all-time bad. He might actually be playing in the UFL this year if he played for Chip Kelly and that shitty offense in Las Vegas last year. Legitimately. I wouldn't want to trade for J.J. McCarthy. Like I said, I've never been a fan of his, but it's an option that you have to acknowledge is a possibility as a former first-round pick quarterback available for trade, probably for a pretty affordable price tag. Somebody that's played in cold weather at Michigan before, has played in the NFC North. I'm not talking myself into this. No.
Polo with the 2.
Just can't do it.
Weak free agency class had to factor into Washington current haul. Yeah, it's I guess, but not really. I feel for what Washington needs, it's a decent.
But the thing is, there's still here's what I'll say though, Paulie. I don't disagree that this isn't an amazing free agency class, but you only have 2 picks in the top 100. You have a ton of starting spots on your roster you have to fill. And you haven't filled a lot of them yet. You got to find a solution next to Bill at running back. You only have 1 running back on the roster. You usually go into the year with at least 3, sometimes 4. You got to find answers there. It's a bad running back class. There's only 1 guy that was considered in the top of the group, and that's Rachaad White. He makes a ton of sense for this Commanders team. I'm actually surprised that they haven't gotten a Rachaad White deal done. Because I think he would want to play here because he played with Jaden in Arizona State. Played with Brandon Ayuk at Ohio State or at Arizona State as well. He shouldn't be that expensive. The Commanders have all this money in the world. You can't pay $7 to $8 million a season for Rachaad White. I don't know, man. I feel that's kind of a no-brainer move to me. Now maybe he's asking for more than that, and the Commanders don't want to do that. Fair enough, but I feel you got to get a running back. You still have to get a starting center. You still have to get a starting left guard, in my opinion. You have to get 2 starting receivers, and I understand one of them is pretty much already spoken for with Brandon Ayuk, but you still got to get another one. You've made a play for guys like Alec Pierce and Romeo Doubs, and if you were interested in Doubs, why not go get Jawan Jennings?
Yeah.
Why not try and go get Darnell Mooney, who I think would be an awesome number 3 receiver here? De'Ami Brown is available. You could probably get him on the cheap, and he had great chemistry with Jaden Daniels. De'Ami Brown played awesome in that kind of final stretch of the season in 2024. That's why he got that big contract with Jacksonville last year, and you can get him back on the cheap. Like, that's a move that I would be fine with. Like, it's just, there's too many spots that are not being filled right now, and I get it. They're probably going to get filled eventually. Like, it's still relatively early in this thing. Free agency just opened up yesterday, but, like, obviously the biggest deals and the best players tend to go earlier. And the Commanders have all this money to spend, and there's still quality players at all those positions I just listed. Graham Glasgow was the starting center for Ben Johnson's offense in Detroit for multiple years. David Blau is modeling this offense off of Ben Johnson's offense that he ran in Detroit. That seems like a really good fit to me. How is that deal not done? You got Rachaad White, who is a pass-catching running back. That could be your third down back and would be a great pairing for Bill Krosky-Merritt, who's more of an early down back. How is that deal not done? Left guard, there's multiple good ones. Joel Bitonio, Cleveland's really only good offensive lineman last year. He's available, probably on the cheap because he's an older guy. Why don't you get that deal done? I think, just saying it's a weak free agency class, like there's quality players out there, And the Commanders have the money to spend. So it's just a little bit frustrating. Now, obviously, it's still early. We have to wait until all the moves in free agency are done, and then we can kind of take a look at what the big picture looks like. But it's just frustrating when you have this much cap space to spend and you only make one big signing in what's been the first 2 days so far. So hopefully they can get more done in the days to come. All right, man, we got about 15 minutes left here before we're going to say goodbye for the day, unless we get breaking news. But if you guys want a Steelers Talk or Commanders Report T-shirt, here is this is the Steelers Talk T-shirt, the channel logo T-shirt, available for $25 on our website, chatsports.com/Steelers Talk. You guys have been asking for that one for a while, multiple years at this point, and we're finally getting into the merch game here, so take advantage of that. But also get your Steel City Drinking Team T-shirt just in time for the holiday coming up here, St. Patrick's Day. Chatsports.com/PitGreen to get your Steel City Drinking Team T-shirt. This T-shirt is a limited edition T-shirt, only around up until St. Patrick's Day, so make sure you get yours before time runs out. And then also we have a Washington Drinking Team T-shirt available for our Commanders audience. Chatsports.com/DCGreen is the link for that one. And you guys can get express shipping on those green T-shirts for St. Patrick's Day. $5 off express shipping. Right now on our website, you guys have to press the express shipping button, but if you do that, you'll get $5 off. It was $10, now it's $5. So if you guys want express shipping, you guys can click that button. And then also we have Beers hats available on our website as well, chatsports.com/beers, if you want to pair your Beers hat with your Drinking Team T-shirt this year. Thank you guys for your support. All right. Yep, so Brooke Pryor just said that Jalen Ramsey will be participating in the Fanatics Flag Football Classic on March 21st in L.A. So hopefully he doesn't tear his Achilles. $10 from Big Bash says, what's up? No. I need us to get Brisker and Leo Chanel. It's actually Chanel. It's with an E-N-A. But I get that's a very understandable mistake because of the designer. But as well, after we trade PQ, then it's Steelers to 7. Yeah, I'm probably lower on Brisker than some Steelers fans because I know he's from Pittsburgh and people love that storyline. But he's not the best tackler and he's not the best in coverage. So, those are two things that are pretty big bugaboos for me. I want you to be, especially with as much man as the Steelers are expected to play. Don't know if I love Brisker as somebody playing as a safety in a man-heavy system. Now, if he's just playing like center field or if he's playing, the half field in cover 2, like he's fine, but like if you ask him to man up a tight end even, like it's usually not great. He's a decent player, but I think he has to be in a specific style of defense where it's like a quarters cover 6 style defense. And the good news for Brisker is a lot of defenses play that style, but I think the Steelers are going to be playing more of an aggressive, more of a man-heavy approach next year, kind of similar to the Belichickian style defenses that Patrick Graham learned under there in New England. think it's going to be something like that, and I just don't know if I see Brisker as a fit for that. But if they trade PQ, I'm all over Leo Chenal, especially at a lower price point. That would be absolutely awesome for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some other guys I'll be open to signing as well. Landon Roberts, he's a free agent. He'll be cheap as a run-stuffing, thumping linebacker on early downs. And Jamal Adams would be another guy that I think about as well, who played a linebacker-type role for Patrick Graham last year and had the best year of his career over the last several years. Big bash for the Twos, as well as pulling in Jenkins.
Well, we just got breaking news. The Browns are signing Elton Jenkins.
No. Gosh.
That sucks.
That sucks, man.
That is awful. Honestly, for both teams here. I'll get this made real quick. I knew as soon as I pushed it and I saw the Rappaport and the Jenkins already, it was just over.
Man,
that's such a good signing for them.
Yeah, it's a good signing for Cleveland, but I hate to see Cleveland get good players.
Obviously.
Especially ones that I really wanted, man. So now obviously the Steelers are going to have to pivot.
We're pivoting like Jordan.
Somebody to keep an eye on at that position for the Steelers is Brock Hoffman. He was a swing interior lineman in Dallas for the last several years. He can play center or guard. Should come relatively cheap.
I think it's someone to watch for the Commanders as well.
How much did he get?
He got 2-year, $24 million.
Telling me we couldn't sign him for $12 million a season?
Both teams could have.
Man, I think the Steelers could have made that work. That stinks. All right, well, I mean, there's still some good left guards out there. Joe Bitonio is still out there, and Kevin Zeitler, even though he's played right guard mostly. Brock Hoffman is still available. So, honestly, I think that's a pretty big domino. Like, it's not impossible we get some more signings here towards the end of the day, because I think there's multiple teams that were probably in on Jenkins.
You could see a guy like Chris Paul get signed.
Yeah, Chris Paul, another option for sure. I could see that. Man.
Definitely one that sucks.
That sucks for the Steelers, man. I thought that had a real chance of happening because of his connection with Rodgers, because $12 million a season, the Steelers can make that work. He was a Pro Bowl left guard when he was playing guard for the Packers, and he wouldn't have counted against the comp pick formula, which Omar Khan is obsessed with.
So Elton Jenkins off the board. Packers waived him with the failed physical. This is certainly a big domino in the left guard / center. I really like this.
So he's failing physicals, though.
That's the thing. Is that Packers?
So the injury thing, maybe the Steelers dodged a bullet here. Then
I mean,
like if he's failing physicals, like maybe that's not a great sign for an interior lineman that's getting older.
I mean, obviously, they could have just like if Cleveland's doctors cleared them and said it was good, trust your doctors. But like that could be an issue. Maybe that was the reason why both these teams didn't offer him. I think obviously I don't think Jenkins was more of a favorite to go to the Steelers, like you were saying. I definitely think the Commanders could have made a push.
Yeah,
but I think
definitely
the whole thing is that like you got to consider back now going from the interior to the Commanders here. You got to consider just bringing Chris Paul back just right away. Like Steelers obviously can't just bring back Isaac Seumalo, but like at least what you have with Chris Paul. Unless the plan is, just Nick Allegretti at center. What? Who am I thinking of? The Commanders draft pick that they had a couple years ago.
Brandon Coleman?
Yeah, Coleman, left guard. Like, I don't think that's a good plan. Now for the Steelers, do you consider Broderick? But, like, even then, he's hurt.
But, he's hurt, and you don't know if he's even going to be ready for the start of camp.
So,
and he hasn't played guard, and because he's going to be in rehab, he's not going to have time to train at guard.
Yeah. So
I don't love that idea. I mean, everyone has been saying the Steelers are going to try and sign a left guard. And obviously, if $10 million was too much to bring back Isaac Seumalo, then paying $12 for Jenkins is probably not what they're looking to do. But it's like, if I'm the Steelers and this is a win-now season and, like, we're planning on going with Rodgers for one more year, and you know you're only going to have that quarterback for 1 year, and you want to make the most of this year, like, I don't know why you don't just go out and get the best, player that you can if you can afford it. And I think the Steelers can't afford it. Like, they've got a number of ways to create more cap space if they need to. Now, I think, maybe the injury stuff scared them off the $12 million price tag, which is fair. Like, if they bring in Brock Hoffman, who's going to be, like, a pretty cheap asset, I would say, like less than $5 million on maybe a multiple-year deal, and he comes in and he's a starting-level left guard for you, great. Like, that's awesome. That's an awesome value. But
I'd certainly blow up.
But I'd also be cool. Yeah, but he could also be bad, and he could be the weakest link for the Steelers this year.
Yeah.
Or the Commanders. Like, he's very much in play for the Commanders as well. But, like, you got Joel Bitonio. You've got Kevin Zeitler still out there. By the way, Zeitler, I know he played right guard with the Lions, but, he's got that Lions connection too. So, like, I could see Zeitler being somebody that's a Commanders target at guard, even though they'd have to switch sides with him. $10 from Big Bash. Another option too, Ponzi, if there's a guard that's available via trade. I mean, the Steelers have 12 draft picks. They could look for players.
Less so for the Commanders. They need to sign someone.
Yeah, the Commanders need to sign people, but because they don't have the draft capital to work with. Big Bash for the Tents, as we waited way longer for Rodgers last year. He's waiting to see what we build. He'll be back. Push comes to shove. Howard would produce with this roster. I don't think that's a guaranteed, Big Bash. Like, I don't think that's a guarantee. Like, I think what's a greater chance, that he's closer to J.J. McCarthy level play next year or closer to, like, Dak Prescott level play next year?
J.J. McCarthy.
Let's
be for real, guys.
If we're being for real, I think that he's more likely to be like a bottom 5 starter in the league than he is, like, even being a top 15 guy. Because there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this league. To be top 15, you have to be pretty freaking good. The chances of Howard being a bottom 5 quarterback are a lot higher than being a top 15 guy.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality, man. Like, you look at the history of 6th-round picks at quarterback, not even just 6th-rounders, 7th-rounders, 5th-rounders. Like outside of the first 2 days, and frankly, even outside of the first round. Frankly, even inside the first round. Like, the odds, even at the highest level, first-round pick is not that high that they're going to work out. The chances get lower when you get to day 2. The chances get even lower when you get to day 3. The chances are astronomically low that you're going to find your franchise quarterback in round 6 or 7. There's only so many Tom Brady's out there. There's only so many Brock Purdy's. Those are the outliers. They are not the rule. And, you can't bank on a 6th-round pick being Brock Purdy or Tom Brady because you're trying to bank that on like a 1% probability. Because you look at the history of 6th and 7th round quarterbacks, it's literally like 1% of them become franchise quarterbacks. So, like, to bank your season on that, like, to me, that's not the way to go. Like, listen, if Rodgers retires, if he fucks us and we bring in, Joe Flacco or something, and Howard competes for the job and he wins it, then fine, whatever. We'll give Howard a season. But, like, does anyone really think the Steelers have the best chance to win next year with Will Howard? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I love him as a kid. He works hard. I think he's got some tools, and obviously the Steelers like what they've seen from him in practice. And I'm not giving up on Will Howard. I'm not saying there's zero chance he could work out. But to bank your season on that bet, it's a bad bet. It just is, all right? You have to have other options in the quarterback room to compete with him at the very least. But you say in your post here, Big Bash, that Rodgers is going to be back this year, and I agree with that. I think by far the most likely scenario, especially because this has gotten to this point. Like, I feel like if Rodgers was retiring, I would hope and I would think that he would have the courtesy to let the Steelers know that he's probably going to retire, because very clearly, Ponzi, and a lot of people have said this, Kaboli pointed this out too, whatever Rodgers has been telling Mike McCarthy and Omar Khan in these conversations, they think he's coming back. So if he retires, that means that either A, Omar Khan and Mike McCarthy are dumb fucks and couldn't read the tea leaves, or B, Rodgers was kind of leading us along and then fucked us at the last moment when there was no good quarterback options left. Those are the two options if that happens. So I think because it's gotten to this point, Rodgers is going to play with somebody. I think at this point he's waiting to see what happens with Minnesota.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me. He's got to be waiting to see what happens with Minnesota. What's going to happen with Kyler? And if he signs with Minnesota, something tells me Rodgers will be back here in Pittsburgh in pretty short order. Because, listen, man, you look at the situations between Minnesota and Pittsburgh. I do think, if you had a choice, you probably pick Minnesota, just on paper, right? They've got, former coach of the year in Kevin O'Connell. They've got maybe the best receiver in the game. They've got a really good number 2 receiver. They got a great defense. You play inside. You get to play the Packers twice a year. You get to play the Bears twice a year. I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers' number 1 destination is Minnesota. But if they're going to go get Kyler, then obviously I would say the best situation for Rodgers at that point would be us here in Pittsburgh. So it feels to me, Ponzi, unless Rodgers retires, which is, I would say, a pretty small probability at this point. I think if he were going to retire, he would have already announced it. I think the Steelers will probably end up with either Rodgers or Kyler Murray as their quarterback. And I think Rodgers is clearly the favorite there because I think Murray's probably going to Minnesota. Once we get that Minnesota news, I think we probably get the Rodgers news pretty quickly after that. $5 from Sonny G says, thanks for pronouncing my name right. C. Gullet. Did I just butcher that? I don't know. Rico Dowdle, how mad are Panthers fans? They love that guy in Carolina. Glad to have him here. He's a fan favorite, man, because he runs hard. That's the thing about Rico Dowdle is that he runs really, really hard. He's no nonsense. If running backs that stand behind the line of scrimmage and they're kind of meandering back there annoys you, you're going to like Rico Dowdle because he's just a straight line runner. He's going to try and find a hole, and he's going to try and run through it. Sky Moore going to the Green Bay Packers. So that's a nothing signing. But, yeah, man, I'm excited to see what Rico's going to do here. Obviously, he's going to be probably the early down option for the Steelers, and great compliment to Jalen Warren in this group. My man, Michael. Appreciate you, Michael. Coming in with a 20. Says at some point we got to just stop putting the Band-Aid on this QB situation and draft a guy they will give a chance or get a franchise guy in free agency. A youth movement is needed sooner rather than later to stay competitive. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Michael, but I think the more prudent strategy is to wait to 2027 to get that young quarterback because there's more quarterback options, right? This year, you're talking about drafting a quarterback or getting your franchise guy in free agency, right? What options are out there that you love, that are young, that you think are legitimate options to be your option there? Like Kyler Murray, who's 29 and his athleticism is going to start waning here in a couple years. Kirk Cousins, Joe Flacco, Anthony Richardson, who hasn't really shown anything in his career. Will Levis. Are these bets that you think are good bets for the Steelers? For me, we have a guy that already brings us a pretty good floor in Aaron Rodgers. We saw what the floor was last year because he had no receiver help, pretty much. DK was getting doubled, and he didn't have a legitimate receiver too. Geno Smith was on the field all the time for some fucking reason, and we weren't using Pat Freiermuth, right? We had to feed the ball to our running backs in the passing game last year. And I don't think that was necessarily Aaron Rodgers' fault. So we have that baseline, and our baseline is 10-7, okay? But we still have another level that we could reach with Rodgers, in my opinion, because like I mentioned before, you're improving the offensive play caller. You're improving the weapons, all right, which is extremely important for a non-mobile quarterback, okay? You improve the weapons and the play caller for a non-mobile quarterback, that quarterback's going to be better the next year. Unless Rodgers just completely falls off a cliff with his arm strength next year, which I just don't see happening. So I think that, you have the highest floor option is Rodgers, and then the highest or at least one of the highest ceiling options. I actually think Rodgers has the highest ceiling here in Pittsburgh than anybody else because of his football intellect, because of his familiarity in McCarthy's offense, because of his arm talent that he still possesses, the established chemistry he already has with the players in the locker room. Like, I think this year, obviously the Steelers want to try and compete and win this year. They're not trying to rebuild this season. They're trying to win. So if you're going to try and win, I think, if there's a quarterback option out there that gives you the highest floor and one of, if not the highest ceilings, you go with that quarterback for a year. And then, I would get rid of Mason personally and bring in an Anthony Richardson, like you point out. Bring in a Will Levis. Bring in a Trey Lance. Bring in one of these younger quarterbacks that still have some talent and have, 2 younger quarterback options as backups to learn from Rodgers. And then once you get to 2027, you've got quarterback choices, right? You could go with the Richardson, the Lance, the Levis, or you could go with Will Howard if he plays better in practices this year. And if he plays better in the preseason. You could also go with the 2027 NFL draft pick. It should be, 4, 5, or 6 first-round quarterbacks next year, or at least that's the expectation. If that's the case, even if the Steelers are good, they can very easily trade up for a first-round quarterback option. So, I understand the frustration with the quote-unquote Band-Aid options. I understand, wanting to have a long-term future at quarterback. I get you, Michael, and I agree with you on that. But I also think, you also have to have an eye on the present as well. And you got to look at your options and your long-term options available to you this year. And I just don't see any of these options as good investments or bets for the Steelers. I think the Steelers' best bet is to try and win this year with Aaron Rodgers and then to try and get their younger option maybe in the building this year. See what you have in an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis or a Trey Lance on a low-level contract. Don't trade too much for those guys. You see what you have in Will Howard. And, you make a decision next offseason. I think that's probably the best way to go. $2 from the sports guy. Says best available free agents for the Steelers right now. Well, now that Elton Jenkins is gone, that kind of puts a damper on things. But I would say Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback option. I would say wide receiver, Darnell Mooney. Keep an eye on him. If you can get him for a less than $8 million deal, 1-year contract, that's awesome. We have a punter trade.
Steelers got Michael Pittman for the same value as a fucking punter.
The Texans are trading Saints punter.
Or
trading for Saints punter. Kai Kroger. And they're swapping 6th and 7th round picks. So we got Michael Pittman Jr. for the same value that the Texans got a punter. That's insane to me. But to answer your question here, sports guy, Dalvin Tomlinson at nose tackle. If you want to go linebacker or big nickel, Jamal Adams, Leo Chenal, Kevin Byard. If you want to go left guard, Joel Bitonio, Kevin Zeitler, Brock Hoffman. Yeah, I would say probably those names right there. $5 from Alton Yates says hopefully the Pittman signing will incentivize Rodgers to come back. Yeah, I mean, I think that, everything that the Steelers have done this offseason has been setting up a case for Rodgers to return. You know what I'm saying? Hiring Mike McCarthy, who he's very close with. And then in turn McCarthy hiring a lot of Rodgers' favorite coaches from Green Bay, especially offensive line coach James Campen. Rodgers said it himself. That's a selling point to me. He said that on McAfee last week. Then, you bring in some nice pieces here. Michael Pittman Jr. You don't bring back his buddy Kenneth Gainwell, but you bring in a nice back Enrico Dowdle to take some of the load off of his plate on early downs. You get rid of Geno Smith. I mean, Rodgers hated Geno Smith, dude. I'm telling you. Remember that one play? It was in Detroit, so this is late in the season. And Geno Smith, before Rodgers snaps the ball, is motioning to the other side of the formation. He just goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" And remember that play where Rodgers threw it to Geno Smith, but he was supposed to run an in-breaking route, and he ran an out-breaking route, and it would have been a touchdown. And that was I think it was in the Cincinnati loss.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. And then he made that comment of, everyone goes to the meetings, all that stuff, so they should know what to do. That was directed at Geno Smith, and now he's gone. And now, McCarthy is almost certainly going to use Pat Freiermuth more, which is important to Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers advocated for Muth to get more playing time all season long. So, everything that they've done this offseason has been laying out their case for Rodgers to return. And even then, guys, it's probably not good enough right now. It's probably not good enough right now to be Rodgers' first choice. Because the only thing that makes sense to me right now, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, is the only reason why I'm not signing back with Pittsburgh is because I want to see what Minnesota does. With Kyler Murray, I want to see what happens with Murray tomorrow in Minnesota, and I want to see how much interest they have in me for that job. Because you can still make an argument, even with the Pittman deal, even with the Dowdle deal, all that different stuff, that Minnesota is still a better landing spot for him than Pittsburgh. So that might be what he's waiting on. And then if Kyler goes to Minnesota tomorrow, it's very possible we very, very quickly get an answer from Rodgers regarding the Steelers. But with every reporter out there saying that Kyler Murray's going to Minnesota, it's probably going to be coming together here pretty soon, I would say. $5 from Bernard says Cousins wouldn't take the Steelers team to the playoffs like A-Rod did with that wide receiver core. Completely agree. I think that this team, with Kirk Cousins playing in this division last year, this team maybe wins 4, 5, or 6 games. And it's the worst season we've had in a while. And by the way, if we won 4, 5, or 6 games, the Steelers would still not be able to draft a quarterback because this isn't a good quarterback draft class. I mean, the option the Steelers would have had is the same option they have this year in Ty Simpson. Only you would have had to take him earlier than if you would have taken him, at 21, like the Steelers could potentially do this year. So, all this talk about, we have to have a bad season so we can draft a quarterback. Well, not every quarterback draft class, has enough quarterbacks for you to draft. You just can't bank on that. That's why I think that, the Steelers should absolutely try and win this upcoming season, because the idea that, if we're bad, we're going to get a quarterback, are you sure about that? Are we sure about that? I'm not sure if that's as done. Just go ask the New York Jets if that worked out for them last year. They have Geno Smith as their starting quarterback heading into this season. $2 and Bernard Nixon says, Ponzi, do you hate Aaron Rodgers now? LOL. Ponzi?
It's just frustrating, man. It's just frustrating. I don't understand. Obviously, he has the right to make this decision as long as it is, but it's you would have thought you would have had a decision by now. And if you wanted to play the field, you want to play the field. But, dude.
That's the only thing that makes sense at this point.
If he decides to retire, then, I will hate A-Rod for this.
Listen, man, the retirement option doesn't make sense to me because I would hope he would have the courtesy to let Pittsburgh know that he was planning on retiring before free agency. How long does it take for you to make that decision? Honestly. It shouldn't take that long. Take a break from, stooping your wife for a second and try and make a decision for us all, please. I don't really think that, he's ready to commit to Pittsburgh right now, or else he would have already done it. So the only thing that makes sense to me is, he's not saying no to Pittsburgh. I think that he still feels like Pittsburgh is a good option for him, but he wants to go to the best option for him. And he might think that Minnesota is the best option for him because they do have a better receiver duo there. They just do. They've got a better head coach there. They just do, I would say. And Kevin O'Connell, definitely a better. I would give O'Connell the edge over McCarthy in terms of play calling for sure. They've got a defensive play caller that knows how to get the most out of his defense in Brian Flores. That's still a question mark here in Pittsburgh with Patrick Graham. So I think that kind of like last year, Rodgers views Pittsburgh as a good place for him. He enjoyed his time in Pittsburgh last year. He would, I'm sure, enjoy his time in Pittsburgh for another season, but he might view Minnesota as a similar situation to Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, where it's you're getting a bunch of good receivers and a really good head coach and all that different stuff and a good defense. And he might like the situation here in Pittsburgh, but maybe just not quite as much as Minnesota. And the second Minnesota goes in a different direction, Rodgers lets the Steelers know, okay, now that option's off the table, I'm with you guys.
In his spirit, there's an interesting, person or player who may have just been on the market now. Osa Odigizua from the Cowboys, apparently on the market.
For trade?
For trade.
Yeah, he's not a nose tackle, though.
He's not a nose.
And, I don't think
he would the Steelers or Commanders. Obviously not the Commanders, but, it is an interesting trade target for people. I don't know who would go after him. I feel like the Steelers, he's not a nose. That's the thing. They signed a nose because they're switching to a 3-4. This is known. They're switching to a 3-4. One of them, those tackles are going to have to go out. And they just restructured Kenny Clark's contract.
Yep.
And Quentin Williams is not going anywhere. Is the plan to play all three? But they just signed a nose, a more traditional nose. So I think, I don't know if the Steelers would trade for him. I don't think that's really a good fit, no? Because I
don't think so.
You got Derek Carmen already.
You got Derek Carmen. You got
maybe Cam Hayward retires?
Yeah, maybe. But, at this point, it kind of like with the Rodgers thing, I feel like if Cam was planning on retiring, he'd have the courtesy to let us know before free agency. Is Cam Hayward really going to fuck us this offseason and retire after free agency or where we had an opportunity to replace him? I don't see Cam doing that.
Yeah.
I just don't see Cam, listen, man, players obviously get to have their own timelines, their life about when they want to do things, but there's a certain schedule that's convenient for the team, and if they have any sort of respect for the team, they would let the team know at a certain time if they're planning on retiring.
Yeah.
So, but if Cam retires, I think Benton takes his spot. So you would still need a nose tackle, and Osa's not a nose tackle, so that would not be an option for me. $5 from the Dumpster Chickens, says Cameron Johnston. Is a $1 million dead cap hit in 2026. Does that disappear when we re-sign him? No, it does not, unfortunately. So we still have that $1 million.
There was a funny – who am I thinking of?
But we're probably signing him to a pretty low-level contract, the Dumpster Chickens. So
I think it was when the Cowboys re-signed Ezekiel Elliott. He had a $20 or a $15 million dead cap when also being on the vet minimum. So he was technically accounting for 16 because it's two different contracts.
Yeah. The Saints are signing Caden Ellis, one of the top linebackers, still available. So that's a good one. So that's another linebacker off the board there. And Rats, I think it is, $7 Canadian, says PQ will be playing like a dog for us next year, feeling he's scorned and a chip on his shoulder. We needed to keep him. Listen, man, I hope he does.
Yeah.
His cap hits 18 mil, something like that next
Something
year.
about that.
It's a lot of money. I'm only really I would personally only really be willing to pay a star all-pro level linebacker that kind of money because I just don't see it as a very impactful position. And if anything, Patrick Queen, at least the last couple years, has been the opposite of that. Lots of missed tackles, not good in pass coverage. Now, he has flash plays where he's an awesome blitzer. He's an incredible athlete. When he gets to play downhill, he's awesome. All right? And then there's a reason why, he's a former All-Pro, and he still has that athleticism, and he's still relatively young. He's still in his mid-20s. And we've seen the Steelers' defense under Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin be the place where linebackers go to die in this league. And then when they leave, they get a lot better. And when good linebackers come to Pittsburgh in the past, they get a lot worse because of what, Tomlin and Austin asked them to do and put them in some really bad positions and all that different stuff. So I think the question for the Steelers is Patrick Queen going to be worth that $18 million cap hit next year? Because I don't think it's smart to extend him this offseason because if he continues to play poorly, you don't want to be on the hook for more money. But listen, man, if he plays awesome next year, I'm fine with him coming back. It's just that if you want to keep him, you have to be sure that he's going to be worth it, in my opinion. And he's got to drastically improve what he does on the field if he's going to be worth that money. $2 from Ben Wright says, what about signing Mekhi Becton? He'd have to move from right guard to left guard. I don't love that. Some guys are just better on one specific side. And Becton, especially in a gap run scheme like the Eagles run, Like that, he was a perfect fit for that Eagles team a couple years ago. But I would be worried about moving him over to left guard. $10 from Michael says, I'm saying in general, not saying our guy is in this free agency. Since Ben retired, our QB room has been a train wreck until A-Rod, and he's not a spring chicken anymore. Having an old QB isn't a flex, LOL. I think it was a flex when Tom Brady hoisted a Lombardi trophy when he was age 43. That was kind of a flex. 40-year-old Peyton Manning hoisted a Lombardi trophy when he was 40. Now, obviously, that was because of the defense, not because of Peyton. He was awful. That final season somehow lucked into a Super Bowl with that legendary Broncos defense. But you guys, you get my point here, Michael. Like, if there's no good long-term answers this offseason, go with the short-term option that gives you the best chance this year. And then get your guy next year when you have more options available to you. That's what I'm saying, right? If there was like a slam dunk, long-term option at quarterback, either in the draft, free agency, or trade this year, I'd be down with going that route. But there isn't one, and the potential long-term answers are very risky. The Anthony Richardsons of the world. Even the Malik Willises of the world would have been a pretty risky investment because of the money you would have had to put into him. Will Levis, Trey Lance, Will Howard, all of them are pretty low percentage bets to be your long-term answer. So the question is, would you rather go with a low percentage chance to get a long-term starting quarterback, but a high chance of him absolutely being terrible and holding the team back, or would you rather go with another short-term option this year that still has great arm talent, still has all-time great football IQ, had the best quarterback season that the Steelers have had in many seasons with a terrible wide receiver room and all the improvements that the Steelers are making this year? Like, to me, the best bet is Rodgers for another year. You bring in, like you've been mentioning, some of these lower percentage potential long-term options. See if you strike gold, and if you don't, you draft your quarterback in the NFL draft next year. And Michael says here that he gets what I'm saying. I get what you're saying too, Michael. This is why I love, having these live forums, getting your questions, just because, the great thing about sports talk is that not everybody has to agree, right? Everyone has a different perspective on things, and I respect everybody's opinion. So I certainly respect yours, Michael, and just sharing our perspectives here. That's all it is. $5 from Justin says, would Fields be an option if Murray and Rodgers are gone? God, man, are we going to do the Fields thing again? Guys, it's been 6 years. It's not going to happen for Justin Fields. I'm sorry, it's not. All right? It's just not going to happen. And especially for an offense like McCarthy's, where you have to be a really, really smart quarterback, and you have to really process defenses quickly, and you have a lot of responsibility at the line of scrimmage. That is the antithesis of what Justin Fields has been as a quarterback in his NFL career. Fields is at his best when he's allowed to, use his rushing ability, have very easy reads, 1 to 2 reads, and then run. And that's just not a sustainable brand of football. And the processing speed for Fields is just not where it has to be an NFL starting quarterback. And unless he magically fixes that, he's going to continue to be the same caliber of QB that he's been his entire career, where it's like kind of replacement level starter, high-end backup level of play. Now, you might be saying at home, but Jack, the Steelers were 4-2 when Fields was the starter. Yeah, well, in the games that they won, the defense averaged giving up 10 points in those games. That's not sustainable. What team in the NFL's defense for an entire season gives up 10 points a game, especially in the postseason? Every game that the Steelers defense gave up more than 20 points, Justin Fields lost. And if you watch that film, it is not that good. I said last year when he signed with the Jets, that was a bad investment. And guess what? I was right. So, I get that Fields will be inexpensive. I get that he still has really good athleticism. I get that a lot of Steelers fans really like him. But it's just, it's been 6 years, guys. It's been a number of different systems, a number of different teams, number of different play callers, and it just hasn't happened. All right, so I think he's a backup at this point. Not really interested in Justin Fields. $2 from William Collins says, why is the market quiet on Malik Willis? Because he's not that good. That's why. He's very spotty in coverage. I thought he played a lot better in the second half of the season last year in coverage, but he's one of the worst tackling corners in the league. And, I mean, like, he can be a liability on screen passes, on, out in space. Like, he's just not a good tackler. So that's why it's taking so long. And Malik Willis, wants probably a pretty decent payday, and nobody's willing to give him what he's wanting. So that's probably what I'll say on him. I think Malik Willis, a lot of people like him because he's crazy fast and he's got long arms and, he's a name that everybody knows. But, he's just on film, he's not that good. And there's a reason why Seattle, over the last several years, has been trying to get rid of him via trade and why they didn't bring him back. Like, he's a free agent for a reason. It's because he's been, he's got some pretty definable weaknesses in his game. And I think he's a very specific type of corner that has to be in a very specific type of defense. And just as I'm talking about Malik Willis, signs a $15 million deal with the Eagles. So Malik Willis on his way to the Eagles. I hope the Eagles like players that can't tackle. So he will be joining forces, obviously, with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. He'll be their number 2 corner. So I like Reek a lot more as a number 2 corner than a number 1. But, like, if I'm an offensive coordinator that's game planning for the Eagles, I am specifically targeting Malik Willis in the screen game and on outside runs because the dude is a terrible tackler. So, guess we got one more there. So no more Malik Willis talk for anybody here. At least that discussion's over. So is that it on the Super Chats? All right. So I think we're going to wrap it up here for our coverage of Day 2 of NFL Free Agency. Definitely more quiet day. But something tells me, guys, that tomorrow we're going to get some answers. All right. We're going to get an answer probably from Kyler Murray. The worst case scenario for me, Ponzi, is if Kyler's like, I want to take my time. I want to take visits to multiple places, which is going to take multiple days. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think tomorrow is going to be a much more interesting day than today. But of course, if the Steelers or Commanders make a move by the end of the day, we are going to have breaking news coverage for you guys. And we'll see what happens. Both teams need offensive line help. Steelers need quarterback help. Washington needs running back and wide receiver help as well. So hopefully Omar Khan and Adam Peters can wake up here after a much busier Day 1 of NFL free agency and start making some things happen for these respective football teams. Really do appreciate you guys sticking with us here. It's been over 3 hours here on the show. All right, we got one more Super Chat. We'll get to this, Mexamander. So we had the Justin Fields question. Now we have the Russell Wilson question. Mexamander asks, are you interested in Russell Wilson at quarterback? The answer is no. No. Like, Russell Wilson right now is everything I'm afraid Kyler Murray could be in a few years, where Russ was previously somebody that was just a brilliant out-of-structure playmaker. One of the best we've seen in a long time. Like, he played at an MVP level. Like, he's one of the best out-of-structure playmakers we've ever seen. But he wasn't an elite mental processor from within the pocket, and he really relied on that athleticism, and he kind of ingrained that into his brain. This is how I play football. And because he's shorter, he's not really able to see over the line of scrimmage, and he's very limited as a pocket passer. I fear the same thing's going to happen with Kyler Murray down the road here once he loses that athleticism, and he loses that ability to play make at the level that he does. He's going to be like Russell Wilson, where it's just going to be like backup level play at best. So Russell Wilson's a backup in this league. Obviously, with his history with the team, I don't think the team wants to bring him back. They obviously said no to him last year. They didn't even offer him a contract last year. They would have rather brought back Justin Fields, who they did offer a contract to, over Russell Wilson. So, yeah, I think that ship has sailed, man. I don't think that that's going to happen. All right, that will be it for today's show. I appreciate you guys. We'll see if we put out some videos here on both of these channels as the day kind of winds down here, guys. But I really do appreciate your support. And just as I say that, $5 super chat from Jagger. He says, why haven't we seen cuts on the Steelers like Dean Lowry or other players like that? Well, I mean, cutting Dean Lowry doesn't really give you a whole lot of cap space. And for guys like Patrick Queen and others that do give you more by letting them go, like they still like those players. And they pointed it out during the Combine, Omar Khan did, that they're in a good spot cap-wise. And if they like these players, they can keep them around. Personally, I would probably think about unloading Patrick Queen's contract because it does give you more cap space, and I feel like there's a smarter way to go about the linebacker spending than what they're currently doing, which is the second highest paid linebacker group in the league. But that's the reason. It's because they feel like they're in a good cap position. They're not expecting to pay the quarterback all that much either. They're expecting Rodgers to be back, and if he comes back, it's going to be somewhere between $10 and $15 million per season. So it's probably going to be less than 15. He played for like 13 and a quarter last year. So that's probably what the number is if he ends up coming back. So that's where we're at this situation, Jagger. But that doesn't mean cuts can't happen. It's possible that they have to cut Patrick Queen at some point. It's possible that they cut Malik Harrison. It's possible that they restructure TJ Watt. It's possible that they restructure DK Metcalf. So I still think that there's going to be more roster moves that are made by Omar Khan to create space, but at this current juncture, they don't have to make those, so they don't want to make those moves until they have to. So that's the answer there. All right, that'll be it for today's show. Thank you guys so much. Again, we will see you guys next time. We will be live again tomorrow. The plan is at the same time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, an hour before the start of the new league year. And something tells me we're going to have a lot more juice than we had for you guys today because Kyler Murray's available tomorrow. Aaron Jones is available tomorrow. Javon Hargrave is available tomorrow. Brandon Ayuk is available tomorrow. I think tomorrow's going to be a much more entertaining day for Steelers and Commanders fans. So make sure you guys join us tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time, for our next live show here covering the NFL free agency for the 2026 NFL season.